Good morning, friends. Ash here, NPNP News. It is December the 18th, 2025. And as the year winds down and we're still no closer to being free, we're still no closer to having free energy, we're still no closer to having medical beds, we're still no closer to having much of the things that we thought we'd have. We're seeing that the United States is starting to move in towards possibly doing something in Venezuela more. They're seizing more tankers. And a lot of stuff was happening, right? Where you're saying to yourself, why is this going on? This isn't supposed to be going on. We're supposed to be doing this, right? Why are we doing this and this and this? Why is Dan Bongino stepping down from the FBI after less than 1 year working there? Is there something wrong? Is he seeing that the real Trump is not even there anymore? I'm assuming he sees something's wrong, right? He's saying that his wife, it's a strain on his marriage, blah, 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 but you knew what the job was before you took it. So why does he leave so fast? Well, something's wrong, right? Obviously, something's very, very wrong. Sorry, I keep checking every day to see if my YouTube is back, and it never comes back. So we're now seeing silver at $66.66. What does that tell you? We got 4 6s, right? You're seeing the metals on a historic run. Platinum running like crazy, almost to $2,000 at $19.29. It was up, I think, $60 or $80 the other day. Silver yesterday was up, I think, $3.01 at one point. It was over $67. And we have gold up $3.40 to $4,359.90 an ounce. So gold's creeping back to 4,400. Silver's went to 67. You're seeing that Kushner is part of the group that is trying to get the Paramount deal, right? Part of this is about Colombia also, right? Colombia. I was watching this video yesterday about who really runs the United States, and it's none of the people that you were told. It's actually a family called the Collins family. And those people, I believe, are all the way back to the Columbus family, Christopher Columbus from Spain. So you got all kinds of different groups that were running the country, but who is like the real, everyone kept saying, well, no, it's actually the Pacers. What it actually was several families from overseas who had seen, if you go back, right, before the United States is incorporated as a country or is created, before 1776, what's going on in the United States? Well, there's several different countries vying for control of it. It's Spain, it's France, and it's England. Those are the 3 major players that are looking to control the new world, which is the United States, right? Why do they want to control it so bad? Because it's abundant. It's abundant in everything you could think of. Timber, fish, gold, silver, food, different types of timber. But there's a problem, right? What's that problem? Well, there's indigenous all over the place, and they don't want you here. You're going to have to, at first, use the different indigenous to help, and that's what the French and that's what the British do, right? They start to trade with the different indigenous. They start to use their trackers to track down other people that they want to kill and take over, right? So you really need to go back to before the United States was ever created. And then when it is created, what happens? Well, it's created by certain people and who are part of an order called the Masonic Order, the Masons. And that's a secretive order. That's a secret society, right? And that order is then taken over by or infiltrated by the Illuminati, right? And so you've been dealing with a group of people that have basically corrupted this entire nation as it was created. It was corrupt in its incorporation, in a sense. And it didn't take almost 100 years for it to become a corporation and then made into a business, right? Where you were then turned into a piece of money, an asset of the corporation, a stock in a sense to be traded from at birth, where your strawman name was created so that they could create bonds against your strawman name and number, which is just a number, right? You're given a birth certificate number and your social security number, or both. Bonds are issued both against both those accounts. Disney invests $1 billion in OpenAI, allows Sora character videos. So that you see in the push to AI, but the problem is they need a lot of data. They need all the data, and they can't. They don't have enough electricity. They can't furnish enough to run these massive data centers. They could if they went to Tesla technology, but they don't want to, because that gives everybody free energy, free wireless world where you can put a light bulb in the ground and it will turn on, and then, or hold a light bulb in your hand and it would work. Turn the radio on without having to plug it into anything, or a tape deck or a stereo system or whatever it is, right? They don't want that, because the resonant energy, the level that technology resonates at is a resonant level that is good for the human being. It's good for living things. It makes them prosper instead of make them die, which is what they're doing by trying to enclose you in this 560 technology world in the cities. That's what they were going to do in the cities. They want to put those giant towers up, right, everywhere, so that it creates a box that you're in, right, where you're bombarded all day long with these negative, horrible energies. Then you can't open your third eye and stuff like that. Zelensky says the people of Ukraine will have to vote on handing over land over to Russia in any U.S. peace proposal. You're going to have to hand over a shit ton of land, is my guess. And you're probably going to be cut off from the ocean, from the Black Sea, because Russia wants that port, and they want that area for sure. Senate rejects extending Obamacare subsidies, PJ Media. Some of these articles are from 5 or 6 days ago now. I've been laying back watching what's happening. And I'm also dealing with, obviously, like the fallout of my father passing away. I have to now deal with lawyers and, well, a lawyer and his estate, etc., right? And try to look out for myself in a situation where there's other people involved with a certain amount of money, right? So you have to always watch out for yourself first if you're in that situation where there's a bunch of other people too, and everybody's vying for whatever's left of someone's money that they have left, right? Of course, the will usually tell you how that's going to be dispersed. My particular case is a little more interesting because my father and his brother both died in the same year, which is kind of a strange thing that you wouldn't foresee happening, but that's what happened with them, unfortunately. I was watching Kim Golgan's video almost a week ago now, where she's talking about the AI the Matrix is an ancient AI used by the deep state, which is exactly what I was kind of thinking it was, right? Where it's, you grew up, we grew up in a world, where all these movies were coming out in the 80s, and especially was a lot of big movies like 70s and 80s, right? Like Star Wars, you have E.T. and what was the big Spielberg movie, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, right? Where you never really see the aliens till the end. And they look like grays, and then, there's different stuff that you're being shown, the Body Snatchers movies, and, all the alien movies, though, that come out from the 50s on, are basically almost every single one is that the aliens are bad, right? And they want to kill us. Of course, you have the Orson Welles famous radio broadcast that scares the crap out of people when that was an experiment, right? They were trying to see if they could actually scare the crap out of everybody and make them believe something like that, and they realized they could do it, right? If they had certain sound effects and people calling in and different things like that made it sound real. Of course, this is over the radio back in the day where you couldn't, before television, they did that, right? So I was talking about Ross Perot was the one who ran against the Bushes and almost won, or ran against Bush and almost won. Judge orders ICE to free Kilmar Abrego Garcia. So they had to free this guy who's a human trafficker. And I think he's probably going to be deported soon. But what a screwed up country this is. I mean, look at what's happening here. You still don't know who your president actually is. Trump made a big speech last night. He made it sound like, oh, something big was going to be told to us finally. And what does he do? It's just something that's, it's a presidential speech where he's trying to plug himself as, oh, look at all the great stuff I've done. Right? Gas is only $1.99 in this state now. Look at that. Right? But meanwhile, inflation's out of control. Everything costs too much food-wise, right? You have unemployment over 4%. You have your currency is almost worthless. You're almost 39 trillion in debt. You just approved a $900 billion defense package, which you can't pay for. Like, what are you doing? You're spending money like it's going out of style and you don't have any money. Incredible surprise discovery under the sands of the Utah desert that could give the U.S. military a huge edge over China. So now they're saying they found a bunch of rare earths in Utah. Probably under the Great Salt Lake, right? Which is a super interesting place. If you ever want to go out west, make a stop at the Bonneville Salt Flats, which is right outside of Utah, Salt Lake City. As you head out from Salt Lake West, you enter the Salt Flats. I believe you hit the Salt Flats even before you get to Utah. No, you hit them more after, though. And, of course, that's a great place to go to ground into the earth, walk barefoot on the salt. Make sure you rinse your feet off when you're done. And, it's a healing place. Very interesting place. I was there about 5 years ago now. And I wish I had some more time to stay there. I should have probably stayed there a lot longer and just grounded into the earth and really absorbed the place, because it's a really interesting place. You can drive your car out there, but be careful because you could get stuck. Incredible surprise discovery under Utah sand. So let's see what's under there, right? Is those rare earths going to help us? Mystery U.S. military jet makes a 3-minute flight in Japan as tensions escalate with China and Russia. I was thinking of the show Westworld, right? Where you can jump into a body, you can jump into a clone, whatever, and go into a world that's not real and just do whatever you want, right? Have sex, kill people, do whatever. And it's all okay because it's just clones in there and they're just getting destroyed. And right? It's not real people you're killing. And is that what the Greys or somebody's doing with all these shooters? Or is it being done with like MK Ultra? Are they still doing MK Ultra? Or did they find a better way to do MK Ultra? I've been watching a lot of the older James Rink videos to try to piece together anything I may have missed in some of the early interviews. He was doing interviews as far back as 13, 14 years ago. He was one of the first people that I saw that woke me up to the fact that, okay, now I can finally understand what some of these memories that are coming back to me are that don't make any sense. And listening to other people's similar stories to mine, who are having similar issues like mine, who had similar memories such as mine, and try to piece together something that I was never supposed to piece together, right? And just going from just having scars on my body that I can't explain, and also waking up sometimes with marks on my body that I can't explain. Which, if you watch Jupiter Ascending, that's the Greys taking your DNA as you sleep. They take certain people's DNA as they sleep and do things to people as they sleep. Why? I don't know. They collect people's DNA for certain reasons. The story was that they destroyed their own DNA by cloning too much and doing all kinds of stuff like that. So they need to keep coming back here and getting people's DNA to, who knows, right? If people can time travel, we don't know how many different densities were created, how many different timelines were created is the point. And what some of the people talk about is that at some point, those timelines will all have to all converge back to a set point, to certain set points in history where they coalesce back to one timeline. And how do we get back to one timeline? Which is sort of like the plot line of a movie called The One with was it Jet Li? I think it's called The One, where he's like 100 versions of himself and he's killing all the different versions of himself. That came out in 2001 with Jet Li. That's another 2001 movie. So, around 99, 2000, 2001, they come out with a lot of movies, right? So Jet Li's killing all these different versions of himself until he wants to become just the one, right? Gabriel Yulaw, once an agent of the Multiverse Authority, which polices interdimensional travel, seeks to hunt down 124 variants of himself across parallel universes. By killing his other selves and absorbing their life energies, Yulaw believes that he will become a superpowered godlike being called the One. And that's what starts to happen, at least in the movie, right? As he goes to other dimensions and kills other versions of himself, he is becoming stronger. That's also sort of like the plot line of the movie called what is it called, with those guys that live forever and they're sword fighting, right? I'll think of it in a second. Where he's got to kill each one of those guys, and as he kills each one of those old like Watcher guys, he becomes like the One also, right, with all the power. So I was watching Samari at home. He's been gone for about a week. It's hard to do his show when it's freezing like 20 degrees out here. We had a real bad cold snap here where it got really chilly before winter. I mean, winter hasn't even officially started. It's already getting in the 20s. We got that polar vortex that I'm sure they did that on purpose. I don't remember the polar vortex just dipping like that before. They're saying, well, now it's climate change. But is it? Is all this stuff real climate change? Or is it fake stuff being done by the weather to make you think it's climate change? Because all the climate change people already came out and said, yeah, it was fake. We know now, right? Al Gore and all that shit he was doing, that's fake, right? So Trump did grant a full pardon to Tina Peters, but she's not been released from jail still, which is interesting. I remember one of my listeners was like, Trump can't technically pardon her, but he just did. The president's power is pretty broad, but is the state going to let her out? We'll see. We don't know yet. They might not, right? Democrats have been relentless in their targeting of Peters, a patriot who simply wanted to make sure that our elections were fair and honest. The question is, why was Dominion doing what they're doing? Did they go in and change the votes in different localities, leaving only the county clerks as the last defense mechanism against that, and she's the only one who did anything about it? See, that's the part I sort of don't get. If this was being done in all different municipalities, why weren't any other county clerks talking about it like that? Why is she the only one that made a big stink, right? That's what sort of... And then she's being talked to the whole time by the Juan O'Savin crew and the Patrick Byrne crew, who I implicitly don't trust, right? Who are the pundits who are making money off this. I mean, I just saw O'Savin talking about, silver's going up. I gotta up the price of the silver coins that I'm selling, making money off this thing on my website that I have, right? As he sells his Mogador jacket, and he sells his silver coins, and he sells cups and all kinds of stuff. This guy's enriching himself as he lives in Hawaii, and he shows you his different cars, his car collection that he has. Who is this guy? Why don't you ever see his face? Why is he going to Antarctica if he's Wayne Willott, some insurance guy? Why is he now insinuated himself and is claiming that he's talking to some of the highest powers in the world? Who is this person? Washington State refuses ICE detainer for criminal illegal alien trucker charged in school bus pileup. The sanctuary politicians in Washington failed once again to protect American citizens by refusing to honor our ICE arrest detainer. I wrote, when does this end? Because what they seem to be doing is just giving these guys driver's licenses to drive trucks and different vehicles that they don't know how to drive and they're not cleared to drive. These are also people who don't seem to speak any English. I mean, I could go in the building where I live. There's certain people working down in the who collect the garbage and do stuff like that, the janitors, that they don't speak any English. I've tried to talk to these people and they don't speak a word of fucking English. How are you hiring people that don't speak a word of English in the United States? How are you doing the interview? How do you know these people are, how can you be an American citizen and live here for years and years and not speak a word of English? Right? It doesn't make any sense. Because you're not been living here. You just got off the wherever you came through, right? And you're not speaking any English because you don't know how to speak. Here's one of my listeners, Lauren MCM. She says she's happy about silver and gold. She's been stacking a long time. I'm so happy for you. You just hold on to it. Don't sell too early. Unless you have no choice. Maybe sell if you have a huge stack of silver. You might want to sell a little bit into the profit, but it's up to you, of course. Right? I'm not selling anything right now. I wouldn't even think about selling until silver's well over $100 an ounce or two. And even then, I probably would hold back because I think it's going over 1,000. It's just a question of how fast it gets there. Does an announcement get made? Does shortages happen where this price will become? I mean, I never saw silver go up $2 or $3 before the past year or two. Now I'm seeing it going up $2 or $3 like it's not that big a deal. Sorry, there's some banging here. Hopefully that won't be ongoing. There is a lot of crap always going on around in New York City. There's all kinds of people doing all kinds of shit, unfortunately. Father of slain IDF soldier says she was killed by Gaza doctors who injected air into her veins. Well, if that's the case, you'll die real quick if someone injects air into your veins. Ilhan Omar's flamboyant, dirty, dandy second husband surfaces in South Africa as Trump accuses duo of being siblings. So this guy's not even in the country anymore? I thought she made a whole big deal about trying to get this guy into the country. Right? Now he's not even here anymore. And apparently she's alleging that... Sorry, guys. I might have to take a break if that keeps going on. Sorry, I don't know where it's coming from. It's somewhere nearby. Let me take a quick break. Sorry, guys, because that's going to become a problem if that keeps going on. So I apologize. I'll be right back in a few minutes. Thanks, friends. This will just be a moment for you. And I'll be right back. Thanks, friends. Well, now maybe it stopped. Most times people aren't hammering at 9 o'clock in the morning too long. But it's New York, you know. People don't give a shit. They make all kinds of noise. They don't care. Alright, maybe it stopped. So how come Ilhan Omar's brother fled the United States? Well, he might have been going to get arrested, right? So we'll have to see what happens with that. Justice Department fails to re-indict Letitia James for a second time. This is another thing that didn't make any sense. That they couldn't indict Letitia James or Comey when there was all kinds of evidence about that, what they had done. So I don't know what happened. Did Trump make this woman into her case? Put this woman, Haba, into the... was it Haba that he put into the role when she shouldn't have been in the role? I'm not sure. Comedian Andy Dick addresses if he's going to rehab. It doesn't appear that he did, or did he at the end go to rehab? He said he may have smoked crack. I never saw crack do that to somebody, but I never smoked crack, so I don't know. He's alleging that he just took some drugs from somebody that gave them to him and did the drugs. I mean, are you stupid? You have no idea what you're doing, right? The guy says it was crack. What if it was crack mixed with fentanyl and you almost died? Or it was coke mixed with fentanyl, right? That's how a bunch of people died in the city already. That actor who was on... that actor who... one of those... a famous actor just died of that, and... they just found another actor collapsed in his apartment who was in Pulp Fiction. I think his last name is Green. Right? They found him face down, collapsed on the floor, blood all over the place, like as if he had just like dropped dead of some drug, like fentanyl or whatever. Because if you dose wrong with fentanyl, you're dead. Right? You get too much, you're dead. You don't got the Narcan, you're dead. Right? You can't give yourself Narcan if you're passed out on the dying of the fentanyl, and you don't have somebody else there, you're dead. If they hadn't given Andy Dick the Narcan right away when they did, he would have been dead. He was about to die. He was turning blue. That means you don't have enough oxygen. Your body's going hypoxic, right? You have hypoxia. You don't have enough oxygen. I think that's hypoxia. In other words, if you don't start breathing a lot of air into your lungs quick, you're going to pass out. You're turning blue. Something's happened to your airways, constricted, or you're having a problem breathing. Because you've taken too much fentanyl, which one of the byproducts of, when you're giving somebody morphine who's old, or fentanyl, which is 100 or 1,000 times stronger, I think it's 100 times stronger than morphine, that suppresses breathing. That's the other bad thing about these drugs. You got to be careful. It's taking your breathing down to a dangerously low level. Your heart rate's going down, right? It's a fine line that you're walking when you're taking these kind of drugs. It's not like, hey, I smoked a joint. The worst that can happen is I get so high I'm going to eat half a pizza and fall asleep or something on the couch. Right? No, this is I could take something and pass out and die within minutes. And if nobody's there with Narcan to save me, or it takes the 911 guy a little too long to get the ambulance to my house, I'm dead. Crypto mogul Do Kwon sentenced to 15 years in prison over a $40 billion epic fraud. So this guy was using crypto and he robbed $40 billion. And there's been all kinds of other hacks of crypto and other stuff. And crypto's getting hammered, if you notice. Right? All these people talking about XRP, that's well under $2. It's on the going down. It's I don't see it going higher like these people are saying. I don't see it being used. I don't see why it would be used. We need a gold-backed dollar again. Each country's money should be backed by gold. That way they can only print as much money as they have gold in reserves to back that cash. You can't. It makes it impossible for you to just blindly print money off the printing press like we've been doing and then lending out 9 out of every $10 of it. Right? Which is usury, which is illegal. Sao Paulo blackout leaves 1.4 million without power, hundreds of flights canceled. So there's all these people, right? The pundits and these other people, they've been talking for years about 10 days of darkness, 3 days of darkness, 10 days of darkness, 3 days of darkness. There's going to be 3 days of darkness where everything will shut off and these movies will play for 24 hours straight. Well, we never got the movie. And you could have easily produced it by now. And some people did produce some really well-done documentaries showing all the crimes that these people have been doing, showing how they're controlling you, showing how the Rockefellers moved into the medical establishment and took that over in the 20s and 30s, right? How they expelled all the doctors who were homeopathic, how they changed you from a healing modality to a pill-based culture, where the pills you're taking, some of them are petroleum-based. They took you to instead of taking you to the Jetsons kind of world where we were going if we had kept down the road with the electric batteries and the electric in the turn of the 20th century, we would have probably by the 50s or 60s had the Jetsons if we had given Tesla unlimited funds and stopped fucking around with him and trying to steal his experiments and steal his work. There would have been no World War II. Because Tesla would have given the Teleforce weapon to the United States and Great Britain, and the Nazis would have never been able to have the Battle of Britain, where the Luftwaffe almost took over England, right, with their planes. There was a whole battle for Britain in the sky that Britain won, right, that England won, but that would have not been necessary. Because the first few planes that the Teleforce weapon, which was just like a DO weapon, which was like an early laser, they would have just melted the planes out of the sky. They would have said, shit, we can't do anything. We can't launch anything in England. They're just melted out of the sky. It doesn't matter that we have rockets. We have a rocket we could launch on England now. It doesn't matter. They'll just shoot it out of the sky. Same thing goes for the United States. There would have been no Pearl Harbor. Unless you allowed it to happen, which is what happened, right? So all these things, Tesla was a big problem for the establishment because he was a genius. He was way smarter than Edison ever was. He was a magnitude smarter than Edison. He had exposed Einstein's theories as being incorrect, in fact, right? He laughed at Einstein. So they didn't want him in there. He was fucking up the program for these guys in a big way, right? And that's why they had him killed in the end, I think, and stole his technology. And then they used it to make the chronovisor, the chronoscope. They could look backwards and forwards in time. And then they started a time travel at some point. And they created all these different timelines. That is why we're having all these problems right now, unfortunately. Part of the reason. Charlie Kirk murder suspect's trial is already thrown into jeopardy as the judge says the botched cameraman violated his rights. Okay. Minnesota Somalis are as Minnesotan as tater tot hot dish. But there's just one catch. Well, these guys, it looks like, have a criminal network set up, and it looks to me like that Ilhan Omar is involved in some way. Allegedly. I was referring to the papal bull that I was talking about last time, which was called Unum Sanctum, right? Which was a papal bull that the Vatican came out with, I don't know, in the 1200s or something, was it? Or we looked into Unum Sanctum before. It's one of many papal bulls that was a papal bull issued by Pope Boniface VIII, November the 18th, 1302. It laid down dogmatic propositions on the unity of the Catholic Church. This is Wikipedia, which isn't the greatest, but was promulgated during an ongoing dispute between Boniface VIII and King Philip of France. Philip the Fair. Philip had levied taxes on the French clergy of half their annual income on 5 February 1296. Boniface responded with the papal bull, Clericus Laicos, that forbade clerics without authority from the Holy See to pay taxes to temporal rulers. Yeah, this all happened also because, right, some of these, what was it, Richard the something, or one of those British crazy kings wanted to divorce his wife, right? He chopped her head off, in fact, didn't he? Yeah. He wanted to divorce his wife, and that wasn't allowed back then. Once you got married back then, it was for life, right? There was no divorce allowed. Alright, so you can go look into more Unum Sanctum. You can go look into the Jesuits. You can go look into the Vatican. You can go look into different popes who were corrupt. Right? There were different corrupt popes. There wasn't just one. Some of the popes were pedophiles too, right? Sure. Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro sings and dances and threatens to smash the teeth of the North American empire. Well, he's not doing that, right? It's just all just show. Porn star Barney Blue was handed a light punishment. She got no punishment. It was a joke, really. She just kicked her out of the country for like 15 years, and she got a fine or whatever, right? I don't see the draw of this woman anyway, right? I mean, there's people had done those kinds of pornos in the 80s. We slept with 500 guys or whatever. It's nothing new. And I doubt you slept with that many guys that quick unless they're all Minutemen. That's a lot of people to sleep with in a short period of time. I don't see how you did it. The numbers don't crunch right. Oklahoma City BLM leader was charged with wire fraud, money laundering, and alleged $3.15 million embezzlement scheme. Yeah, these people were doing all kinds of stuff, right? They're buying homes from each other at inflated prices. They're moving millions and millions of dollars around trying to clean it. That's what they're doing. The thing was a money laundering. One of the biggest scams that goes on in the United States is money laundering, by far. Because there's so much illicit money created via drugs, via all this stuff that they're doing, that they allowed illegal gangs and groups of people to come into this country. They never dealt with the gang problems in this country. They never dealt with the mafia fully. They never dealt with any of these groups. Fed chief frontrunner Kevin Hassett will do whatever it takes to push through Trump's MAGA-nomics. So it looks like Trump is going to replace the head of the Fed, which he's not supposed to be able to actually do. But why hasn't the Fed been disbanded? Why hasn't the Fed been audited? That hasn't never been done, right? Trump's not done a lot of the major things that he should have done. You still have no med beds. People are dying every day. Now they're saying, oh yeah, the med beds are coming. I keep hearing these pundits, oh yeah, they're coming. But why don't they ever come? You already have them. They've already been around. Why can't you just show them and start having people, the oldest people first, right? The sickest people first. They're saying, no, the military is going to get it first. And then who does he give a bonus to of $1,776? And I'm not saying they don't maybe deserve the bonus. They do deserve the bonus, but what about everybody else? Where's my fucking DOGE check? Where's the other monies you said we were supposed to get? The other $1,200. We never got anything. Where's my DOGE check for $5,000? I never got it. Neither did anybody else. EU prepares to use $185 billion of frozen Russian assets to fund huge loan to Ukraine. So that sounds completely illegal. You seized money from my country illegally that you're not supposed to seize, and now you're going to give it to another country as a loan, and then what? They're going to pay you back? That sounds completely illegal. And I can see how Putin is pissed. I'd be too. I think what Putin should start doing is just do economic war on NATO and destroy them that way. Swedish royals issue new statement on Princess Sophia's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein as a photo emerges of her that was sent to the pedophile as a birthday present. Yeah, it looks like she slept with Epstein, or at least he was fooling around with her. With the Princess of Sweden. So how did he get to know? Well, that's before she, I guess, met the prince, right? So sort of like Melania, same thing, right? She did some nude modeling and stuff like that before she met Trump. Denmark labels U.S. security risk amid Trump's ambitious quest to acquire Greenland. So it looks like he's still trying to get Greenland, but he's not going to get it. At least not, I don't see him getting it anytime soon. Why would Greenland just say, hey, okay, yeah, you know what, we want you to rule over us for? Why would they do that for? When you're nowhere near them in terms of the scope of where they are in the world, right? You're not exactly right there. It's not like they're worried about getting invaded by another country, right? Or they have security concerns. Trump's mini-me Paolo Zampoli, the former modeling agent who introduced Melania to Donald, who stayed in the Mar-a-Lago circle, anticipating and echoing the president's foreign policy views. So she says she met Trump at a party, but this guy alleges that he's the one that introduced her to Trump, and he's a modeling agent. So it makes sense that he would probably know who she was if he was in the know about who was who in European models at the time, right? And he's in the modeling business. He probably would have known or at least come across Melania's photos at some point. She was an up and coming model, right? Mamdani suggests NYPD may arrest ICE agents instead of illegal aliens. I don't even think that legally you can do that. I don't think that the New York Police Department cop could not arrest an ICE agent unless they were breaking some law. And even then, they might not have the jurisdiction to do it. How are you going to arrest a bunch of guys who have long rifles, and if they don't want to get arrested, maybe because they think what you're doing is illegal, that might lead to some kind of a standoff, right? You don't want that. Mamdani looks like he's putting in all kinds of bad people around him too. Former people from, the former, what's the tall guy's mayor's name? I keep forgetting his name. Just bad people from former administrations that we don't want. Federal judge bars immigration officials from detaining Kilmar Abrego Garcia. AOC's fighting oligarchy image is shattered by a $50,000 luxury blowout in Puerto Rico. Yeah, what does she do? She goes to Puerto Rico for these meetings that the Democrats all do. And then she spends $50,000 on a luxury blowout to go to the Bad Bunny concert and get her own box and all this stuff, right? She's blowing money like it's going out of style. Where are you getting all this money from? Right? She was just a bartender from the Bronx. How all of a sudden are you blowing 50 grand in a weekend? Well, you got some big money. Here's one of my listeners, Norm Hamill, 327. Thanks, Ash. I can't think of a better way to do my work around the house today than to listen to you do a 3-hour show. I appreciate you, Norm. I don't know how many other people share your view, but I really appreciate you, my friend. Thanks, Norm. What Somalis have done for Minnesota. $1.5 billion in fraud, $67 million in taxes. Front page mag. Over 80% of Somali refugee households are taking welfare in Walters, Minnesota. That's what's happening, right? You're seeing a lot of people from certain countries and parts of the world come to the United States. They come to places like New York, and what happens? They're given debit cards with money on it. They're giving hotel rooms that cost sometimes $200 a night. They're given free things, food, access to clothing, access to shelter. Sometimes they're given driver's licenses that they're not supposed to have. Commercial driver's licenses. That you have to go through rigorous testing and classes and be tested on to make sure that you can follow all the, be able to read all the traffic signs and to be able to proficiently read English properly and be able to speak English properly. Thousands protest against Germany's new military conscription bill. Okay, but it's not. It's a voluntary draft. It's not. I'm sorry. It's It's not. It's not mandatory. It's voluntary. But after World War I and II, Germany was forbidden from creating an army, right? And that's what they started to do in the end. As in the 30s period, they begin to secretly start to build up their army again, in violation of rules that were put in place after the end of World War I and World War II. Putin doubles down on backing Maduro amid mounting U.S. pressure on Venezuela. The countries have enjoyed a close relationship since the rule of former leader Hugo Chavez. So it looks like Cuba has been funneling cash or has been helping Venezuela do something, right? One would be probably moving drugs and human beings from Venezuela to Cuba and then maybe to the United States. U.S. is preparing to seize more tankers off Venezuela's coast after the first ship was taken, sources say. New York Post. So why are we doing that? Because it appears that Venezuela is selling oil to Cuba. And we don't want that. But they're also maybe moving drugs and other things on those oil tankers, right? We don't know. Ukraine land concession vote may be on the table. Yeah, it's probably is. You're going to have to give up a lot of land. But you're still seeing these drone attacks go on. They just blew up, a sub and some base here and oils here. They're blowing up targets that are deep inside Russia. Nome links the seizures of an oil tanker off Venezuela to U.S. anti-drug efforts. So yeah, they could be smuggling cocaine. I always thought that the majority of the cocaine was, made in Colombia, but that's not always true. A lot of coca plant is also grown in Bolivia and different states, different countries. Right? Bolivia especially, I think people who live at the higher altitudes chew a lot of coca leaf to help with the altitude sickness and things of that nature. Is it Sao Paulo has a very high altitude city? No, that's Brazil, sorry. Isn't the capital of Bolivia at a very high altitude? Capital city of Bolivia is, I can't remember the name of it now. La Paz, right? La Paz elevation is high, I'm pretty sure. La Paz is 11,975 foot elevation. So if you go to La Paz to visit, you better, you might not have such a great time. Why? Well, it's at almost 12,000 feet above sea level. That's high. So some of the people in these areas, they chew the coca leaf to help with altitude sickness, to help give them energy, right? That's what some of the runners used to do, who would run these long distances between the different tribes, right, as messengers. Sometimes these guys would be running 100 miles or 20, 40, 60, 80, multiple marathons. They were chewing a lot of coca to get through that. And they're not running in a pair of Nikes, man. They're running in a pair of, maybe barefoot or maybe with some sandals that they got created. But there's not going to be like the sneakers of today, right? With the comfort level that gives. J6 chair makes jaw-dropping claim. Pipe bomb videos outside RNC and the DNC have been deleted. They don't exist. So somebody deleted all the pipe bomber video? Why'd they do that? Because they wanted you to believe the story that, it was this stuttering kid and he somehow managed to outwit this kid who was all over, social media and saying all kinds of stuff, manages to outwit the FBI and all the forces of the United States for years by hiding in plain sight, right? Which is a bunch of bullshit. They weren't ever looking for this guy. And I don't think that's the dude. Things are so bad in San Francisco that residents are forced to take drastic safety measures. Well, there's a crap map. If your city needs a shit map for all the places where there's a lot of feces from the homeless living in the street, you got a problem, right? San Francisco has a massive area called the Tenderloin, which has been around for a long, long time, right? It's sort of like what Times Square was in the 70s, I guess you could say, but it's just in a much larger area. It's a 20 by 20 block open air drug market, if you can imagine, that's filled with mostly homeless. And next time I'm out there, I'm going to go down. I've never been to San Francisco. I've only been to Los Angeles, so I wouldn't mind going through there and seeing what that place is like. I've in my life gone to very many places that are filled with the darkness because I feel like I can bring my light there and help somehow. And I've been to some really, really bad places, not just in New York, but my travels through life have taken me to some places where, I wouldn't want to go back. Some really rough neighborhoods, some bad drug areas, some parts of the country that people don't even know exist. So if you let San Francisco fall into disrepair that badly, it was on purpose, right? Did the Islamic takeover of Texas just get shut down for good? Well, it looks like he put a big wrench in their plan, right? They were going to make this whole city that was going to be all for them, right? No whites allowed, no Christians allowed, no Jews allowed, no blacks allowed, no Hispanics allowed, no Latinos allowed, no gays allowed, nobody, just us. Just Muslims only. Right? These people don't want to live amongst you. They want to live on their own, segregated, away from you. Well, why don't you go back to your country and do that then? We don't do that here. We don't allow it here. Right? I can't go buy 100 acres of land, set up some buildings, create a town or a village, and then say, hey, this is a white-only town. You can't even travel through here. Well, that doesn't work like that. Unless you want to put a fence around all your land and say it's private property, then you can control who goes in and out of your property, but you can't make it into a town where only whites can live. Because if somebody else wants to come live there, they should have a right to live there too, right? You can't tell people where they can and cannot live in this country. It doesn't work like that. It's a free nation where people have the right to move freely about the country. It looks like they're trying to take over. Is the Islamic takeover of New York going to happen? I don't think so. He might be mayor for a term, but that'll be it. He'll be like a one-term mayor like another Adams, and he'll probably get himself into trouble. Plus, he's coming into office with a $6 billion deficit right off the bat. He's $6 billion in the hole. And how are you gonna build and do all this stuff? How are you gonna make the buses free? You know how much that costs per year? How are you gonna pay the MTA employees with what monies? CDC advisors turn focus to aluminum in vaccines. Aluminum salts are used as an adjuvant in many shots. Yeah, there should not be aluminum in vaccines at all. Aluminum and the human body is not supposed to mix. There should be no aluminum in rainwater. Right? People are taking samples of rainwater and finding aluminum in it. Why? There's no aluminum in rainwater normally, unless you're introducing aluminum nanoparticles into the atmosphere, into clouds, that are then producing rain, which falls down into the earth, absorbs into the soil content. Right? And that's why all these fires are burning so intensely hot. Stop chemtrailing us. Force the newspapers to put out articles not claiming that it's a conspiracy theory, but it's actual fact. And why can't you stop DARPA or whoever's doing it? You don't seem to have any way to stop DARPA or these people in the Air Force who are doing this to us. Or you don't want to stop it, right? The world's first AGI system, Tokyo firm, claims it built model with human-level reasoning. The company claims its new system constitutes a fundamental leap beyond existing AI. Just stop. Stop lying to us already. We already know you already have a much more advanced AI. So just stop. Stop lying. Stop lying to us. We know what you have. Woody Allen, Andrew Mountbatten, Windsor, Bill Gates, Clinton, Trump featured a new trove of Jeffrey Epstein photos. Yeah, I mean, was that any of those bad? No, not really. Where's the stuff? Where's Epstein Island photos? Where's somebody of these people walking the beach on Epstein Island? That's what I want to see. I want to see Gates and his fucking, in his beach towel. I mean, Trump loves the sun, right? You'd think he would have been to Epstein Island. He loves the beach. He loves to get tan, right? He loves young women. DOT threatens to pull $73 million from New York after audit finds half of commercial trucking licenses went to who? Illegal alien drivers. Half. Half of the commercial trucking licenses. Half in the whole state went to illegal aliens. That's how desperate these people are to give these people any kind of job that they could do, because there's not much that they can do. Are they going to come over and work in a lab, in a biology lab? No. Are they going to come over and work in a high-tech company? Probably not, right? Are they going to come over and work in a science lab? No. Are they going to come over and pick your fruit and pick crops and clean people's dishes and maybe do some landscape work? Yeah. Are they going to be able to do some construction? Maybe. There's only limited things that they can do. What are they going to do? Sell hats in the street and make a fortune doing that? I don't think so. Are you going to be able to sell food in the street in an illegal cart and make your fortune? No. And you shouldn't be allowed to do that anyway. Stefanik Jordan demand Hochul end New York funding of China-linked nonprofits. Epicenter for election interference. It looks like Hochul's tapped into China pretty tight. It looks like she's strapped into China real tight. Scores of illegal aliens cross into Poland through a hidden tunnel in the Belarus forest. So they got to close that tunnel. They're probably going to have to bomb it. They found a tunnel that's leading to, I don't know, a mountain or something. And it's in the forest, and there's people been pouring through that into Belarus into Poland for we don't know how long. And they just found out about it. Anheuser-Busch is selling its classic New Jersey brewery and closing New Hampshire and California sites. You're not the king of beers anymore. People are drinking less and less, and your beer was never one that they were drinking a lot of. Not since the 60s and the 70s, I'm assuming. I never liked Budweiser. I always thought it tasted like crap. Plus, generations X, Y, Z, they don't drink nearly on the level of Generation Y, Z, and the generations after X didn't drink nearly as much alcohol as X did. X was a big, and the generation before X drank even more than X. So you can see that as the generations proceeded, drinking less and less. And then with marijuana legalization in a lot of states now is changing. A lot of people are smoking marijuana more than they're drinking alcohol, which is really a good thing. Bulgarian government resigns after weeks of street protests, so that's a big deal. The Bulgarian government actually stepped down, and they released a bunch of political prisoners that have been in. Some of them have been in jail many years. Why is Trump going after Venezuela? 3 big reasons. Well, another big reason is they got, some of these countries like Mexico produce a shit ton of silver and precious metals too, right? And, if you take, a few countries in South America, and put them together, they have a lot of silver that they produce between them. J.B. Pritzker signs law allowing people to be euthanized by the government in Illinois. The law known as Debs Law will go into effect in September of 2026. So now the government can put you to death. They can euthanize you. Which is a problem, right? Because what if I don't want to be euthanized and I'm in a vegetative state, let's say, and I don't have any family member as my proxy? Well, who's going to look out for me? Make sure you have a health proxy, right? Which means that someone in your family, your children, whoever you choose is going to be the person making decisions for you if you become incapacitated. That's a big deal, whoever you give that. You better trust that person. Because if you get the wrong person, they'll have your ass on fentanyl real quick and you're on a breathing tube and dead. It doesn't take much. Maybe they intubate you, tear your esophagus, and you die that way. Yeah. There's all kinds of ways you could die in the hospital. You're at the mercy of somebody that may have an IQ of under 100 and have some kind of medical, degree, like a nursing degree. Right? You're at their mercy. Maybe they're having a bad day. Should the government be able to euthanize its own citizens? I don't think so. The Nazis used to do that, right? They were really big on doing it. One of the first things the Nazis started to do is they started to euthanize all the people in the, who were considered, I don't know, whatever you want to say the word is, right? Back then it was retarded. Now they say words like, whatever, mentally challenged or whatever you want to call it, right? They went to all those sanitarium places like that and made sure that all the people like that were put to death right away. Why? Well, we're trying to make a super race. Uberman, right? The Superman. We can't do that if our genetic stock is tainted. So we got to get rid of all the bad genetic material that we think is bad, right? And then we're going to put a bunch of people together who are of high genetic stock and we're going to let them produce. But we'll force them to have, right? We won't let them just get married and fall in love. No. We're going to force them to, right? That was the Lebensborn project. That the Nazis were literally trying to make that next, right? They were trying to produce that super race that was going to be the 1,000-year Reich. Some people think we're still living in that Fourth Reich right now because we let the paperclip Nazis into the United States. The paperclip Nazis went to Russia and Canada as well. And so who knows what they implemented in those countries. Obviously it wasn't anything good. And now we know that Hitler escaped. At some point, Hitler and some of the other Germans, high-level Germans, escaped to Argentina with gold. They gave Eva Perón $300 million in gold so they could hide out down there and get some land, right? Why weren't any of these secrets exposed at the time to the American public, or to the world, in fact, that the United States is accepting paperclip Nazis into our government, into our country? I don't believe it was too highly talked about at the time, but it should have been. House passes defense bill, increased military salaries, $800 million for Ukraine, $650 million for Israel. So they're still giving money to Israel, more than $500 million. And I thought we were done with Ukraine, but no, we're giving another billion almost to them. Plus what the NATO's about to give them. So what the hell is going on here? Why is this taking so long? Why do you keep giving all of our money away to these people? You're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars we've given to Ukraine now. Where has it all gone? Trump administration will deny visas to foreign nationals suspected of gaining birthright citizenship. Some people believe there shouldn't be birthright citizenship. I'm one of those people. I don't believe in that. Because you're allowing people to just show up here in the second or third trimester of being pregnant from China for years in birth hotels, and then they have the baby in the United States, and then they go back to China, and now or they stay here, and now the parent is now also a U.S. citizen because the child is. Death Valley's ancient lake Manly reappears after record rainfall. So there's a lake in Death Valley that sometimes appears if there's enough rain. It's not really deep. It's only about 3 feet deep. But that's a big deal for the ecosystem there, that water. That's a place that doesn't get a lot of rain, right? But there used to be a lake there, right? That's why it's called the Great Salt Lake also. Same thing. There used to be a huge lake that stretched, I don't know, from Utah all across, probably all the way. Probably at one time, I'd say a lot of the United States, at least the West Coast, was underwater. California and those areas at one time. Of course, that was millions of years ago. Who's that girl, the dazzling model pictured in explosive Epstein photos in a rumored romance with Donald? Well, he was surrounded by all kinds of women. He's a freaking womanizer. He always was. Sinaloa cartel activity puts Guatemala on alert. I got all kinds of problems with... How are we dealing with the different drug cartels? We're not at war with them yet. Public urination, drug use, other New York City quality of life complaints are surging. Will only get worse under Mamdani. Yeah, if you're not enforcing stuff now. That's why you need a beat cop. There should be cops walking beats all over the city. Why? Because then they know all the people in the neighborhood. They know who's homeless. They know where the homeless guys are. They know how to remediate it. They know the business owners in the area. They know the people. They know the kids in the neighborhood. They know who's a good kid and who's not. Right? That's the stuff you learn after walking a beat in a neighborhood after a while. We don't do that anymore. We just put cops into a neighborhood where they have no ties to otherwise, that they happen to work there. So the people don't get to know them. They don't care as much about the neighborhood, because if would you care a little bit more about walking the beat in the neighborhood where you live? I would, if I was a cop. I'd want to make sure that neighborhood was clear of all crime. Why? Because my kids live there. My family lives there. My wife lives there. I don't want my wife raped or my wife bothered. I don't want my kids kidnapped or hurt or beaten up by other kids. I don't want gangs shooting up my neighborhood and killing people with sporadic gunfire. Public urination and drug use is going to probably get worse, although it's always been a problem here because you have a high homeless population in New York. 6 homes, Caribbean vacations in a new SUV. How Oklahoma pastor spent $3.15 million of embezzled BLM OKC money. Yeah, these people just said, hey, let me go buy a house. The same as the Somalis in Minnesota were doing. These people, some of them are living in $1 million plus houses. And let me tell you spend $1 million in Minnesota, you got a whole lot of house. Hateful graffiti, including a swastika found scrawled on the wall inside NYU library. So here's more agitation propaganda. We've learned this over the years, right? It's agitation propaganda. It's agitprop. Let's get somebody angry at each other. Let's get the Jews angry at black people. Let's have black people attacking Jews in New York now, right? That's what's the next thing that's starting up. We already had a black gentleman try to stab a Jewish person to death and almost killed the guy. The guy actually was smart. He used his sweater as a sling to protect himself from the stabbing, and he actually saved his own life by doing that. Of course, you should have never, go up against a guy with a knife is usually you're at a disadvantage if you don't have. Although if you know how to defend yourself, you can defend yourself from a person with a knife. It's not easy. Most people don't know how to fight with a knife, though. Like, how to really hurt you with a knife, right? And this guy had a small blade, and luckily he stabbed the guy in the chest, but he had a sweater on and another shirt. So with the sling that he created, that stopped the downward momentum of the guy's stabbing motion enough that it didn't go deep into his chest, but it was like an inch away from his heart. This guy almost got killed. And this is just from some black guy walking around saying, I'm going to kill a Jew today. I feel like killing a Jew today. I mean, who does shit like this? Is this MK Ultra again, or is this other stuff? I don't know. I don't think it's MK Ultra, because MK Ultra takes a long time to do to somebody. You got to fracture their personality into different pieces, usually by something horrible. You know, I don't know if they have newer ways to do it now. I'm assuming they do. They stopped doing it in the most violent ways a long time ago because the results are not great. Right? A lot of people just break, and you break them forever, and they become non-usable, right? I guess you could say you destroy their mental state so badly that they're ruined, right? So they had to figure out, how's a better way that we can do this. Soros-linked group shuts down Miami's conservative radio Mambi after 3 years. So why did Soros buy a conservative radio station? Just to shut it down? But he left it open for 3 years, which is weird. More incredibly disturbing Epstein pictures to come, say Democrats, as part of a release of 95,000 more images. That's a lot of images. Why were all these images held back so long? Why weren't they released during Trump's first term? We don't know. It says photo dump is no big deal. Well, okay. Elon Musk says only a matter of time before Steve Bannon goes back to prison after he's pictured. Yeah, Bannon was with Epstein because he was doing, remember, he was interviewing Epstein for a documentary, but seemed like he was very close with Epstein. Government intelligence officer assigned to secret UFO investigation said wolf-like creature that walked on two legs appeared on his East Coast home afterwards. Okay. Well, we heard about a wolf-like creature actually out in Nevada. Remember where there was the sighting of that UFO out there? And then the guy on somebody's Ring camera picked up some creature moving around somebody's house that didn't look quite human. I know that some of the indigenous Indian tribes talk about skinwalkers, right? People that were mythical creatures that could change, shapeshift and stuff, right? So, the indigenous are the ones that had come across some of this stuff way before we ever had anything to. They probably have had, encounters with Bigfoot as well that they're just not telling us about. Have I ever had a Bigfoot encounter? No, because I don't go into the woods too much, because I don't do well in the woods, man. I get lost, and I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I went hiking once with some people, and we got lost off the trail real quick, and that shit got scary real quick. But luckily, we were in an area where there was a bluff to the right, so we knew that, there was cliffs that we could follow back. If we got lost, you can go to the cliff edge and then follow your way back to the Verrazano Bridge, which was in Jersey where we were, and figure your way back. It wasn't like we were in some vast wilderness where you could get seriously lost, but yeah, if you're in a forest, you could easily get disoriented and lost if you don't know what you're doing, right? And you don't know how to see the different things that are landmarks in the forest that you can use to steer yourself, right? Some people used to use certain trees, but it's very difficult. If you're in a thick forest where you can't see the sun, and you don't know where you are. Ominous fleet of Iranian-linked tankers off U.S. coast sparks alarm about Trump's widening war with Venezuela. So what do we got? Tankers off our coast? It appears Cuba's a much bigger player in this than we once thought, I wrote. Yeah, there's something going on here between Venezuela and Cuba that most of us weren't aware of. I wasn't. Why are Iranian tankers off the U.S. coast? What's really going on? FDA to put most serious warning on COVID vaccines after major study finds shots cause deadly heart damage. Yeah, a lot of people got hurt. What about other people that are dying young of cancers now? We never used to see people getting cancers like this much in their 20s and 30s, neoblastomas and really rare cancers, super like aggressive cancers, right? And we talked about cancer, and look into that black walnut, look into that clove, and look into the other thing that we were talking about. That's in wormwood, right? Wormwood is in black walnut, two super interesting things that you need to look into more. Why were they using wormwood in absinthe? You ever drink absinthe? It's an interesting drink, no? I don't know if there's too many places. You can drink absinthe in the United States now. There are some places you can't drink it. There are places in New York that serve it. Usually it's served over a sugar cube. It has to be prepared a certain way. It has certain properties that can... the wormwood that can take you into a sort of a, altered state. Similar to what some people say, it was sort of a trippy kind of, if you have enough of it, you can get into sort of a trip. Similar to like maybe a mushrooms. I don't know. I never did. I've tried mushrooms in small doses once, and I've also tried absinthe, but not enough that the absinthe was making me sort of trip out, right? You'd have to, I think, drink several absinthes to do that, and be very careful with it. It's an extremely powerful beverage. So always in moderation, right? Be careful. But the wormwood is a super interesting thing that I think our scientists I think people used to know a lot more about this stuff, obviously, right? Indigenous tribes, other peoples. Utah's famed Great Salt Lake has lost 2/3 of its water. That's not good. As crisis imperils upscale ski slopes. I've been to Salt Lake City. It's a strange place. Very nice people, but they have an issue with air pollution, one, and the water is going to be a bigger problem unless they can figure out a way that they can. I mean, they got, the Mormons have a lot of money. Why don't you just figure out some way to produce more water, right? There's got to be a way. The fourth age of conservative media is upon us. Well, what's happening is, people are realizing that what you considered your whole life to be the people, the press, the people that were telling you the information that were supposed to be telling you the truth, they're not telling you the truth. They've been lying to you in some instances for your entire life, if not for multiple people's lives, your parents' life and your grandparents' life. There used to be many more newspapers than there are now, right? There were newspapers in New York at one time that would run the political gamut from far right all the way to communist. So, and fascist, right? You could find a newspaper for almost anything. Now that those days are gone. Long gone. And when you allow the major news agencies to then be swallowed up by larger conglomerates that they were swallowed up by and become a part of, that's a bigger problem. Canada's boosting its military might as it seeks 400,000 volunteer soldiers. They want to quadruple the size of their force. Why? Are you expecting to go to war with the United States or somebody soon? Why would you need to quadruple the size of your army? That's odd. That's a lot of people, no? So, friends, I got to take a break. The coffee's run dry. We're about an hour in, so hour and 14 minutes. That's usually when I take the first break. So I appreciate you. I hope you're well. I got a lot of notes. Just sort of stuff I've been writing down that's been going on, stuff that's happened. I mean, we're in a chaos loop, obviously, since 9/11, if you really want to think about it, right? Ever since 9/11, what happened? You've been in a chaos loop, right? Even before, but that sort of triggered a turning point to me, right? We went into a 20-year war in Afghanistan to allegedly go after Osama and these people, but really we were protecting the poppy cultivation for the opium, right? We wanted to flood the world with heroin, and that's exactly what we've done for the last 20 years, and the CIA and others have profited off that, unfortunately, which has left a country like Afghanistan in a horrible place for a very, very, very long time. Right? Even before we ever were in the country, it was struggling, and it was struggling for a long, long time, intergenerationally. So, we've been in a chaos loop for a very long time. It's been getting worse and worse because at some point they're going to say they're going to want you to break and say, hey, listen, just make it stop. Whatever you got to do, just do it. You got to kill all these people, just go kill them. You got to remove these people, just go remove them. We don't care what you do, just go do it. You got to make giant camps and put a whole bunch of people in them. You got to stop the press and make it not free. Well, we don't care what you do, right? Just do it. Just fix the problem so we don't have all these shootings anymore. Just fix the problem so we don't have all these illegal aliens all over the place doing all these crimes. Just fix it. We don't care how you fix it. We know you're going to have to strong arm it. Just do it. And then all of a sudden the government says, hey, now we can do whatever we want. We can bring in any draconian structure we want and the people will accept it because they've been beaten down to the point with all this chaos loop we've been inflicting on them for so many years that they just ran out of. They don't want to hear it anymore. They don't want to see it anymore. All they want is it to stop, right? So that's sort of where I feel like we are with these people. And we need to remain diligent, obviously, and follow what they're doing and hold them to account in public forums, right? So I hope you're well, working out stretching, staying in your center space. My name is Ash. I've been doing this show over 5 years now. I don't make any profit doing it. I do it for free. I do it because I want to know the truth. I do it because I need to know the truth. I want to know what's going on in the world that I live in. I want to know how we've been subjugated and how we end that subjugation. That's why I'm doing this. That's why I've spent over 5 years of my life doing it. Not to enrich myself selling silver coins like Juan O'Savin. Not to enrich myself by selling you some gold thing, or selling you, or trying to trick you out of your inheritance and telling you to invest in some tricky thing that's going to rip you off. No, I don't give it advice about how to invest. I tell you what I think's going to happen, and then you do whatever you're going to do. I do what I do, and I tell you what I'm doing, and then you do what you want to do, right? Which is what everybody does. You all got free will. Some people never believed that silver was going to be $65 an ounce. I remember selling silver at stores when it was at $25 an ounce, and I said, watch, in the future, silver's going to go over $40 an ounce and over $52. And the guy told me, you know what he told me? It's never going to go over $50 an ounce. That'll never happen, dude, the guy told me. I should go back in there and say, hey, I'm looking to buy some silver, bro. Remember me? So, friends, I hope you're well. I hope you stacked a lot of silver and gold. If you did, you're going to be an extremely rich person, especially if you have a large silver stash. Some people are foreseeing that silver will be, at some point, there won't be any. That certain countries may, in fact, hold back their silver, which, if they did, would make the price go up even higher. So, maybe that's what's going to happen. We'll have to wait and see. So, I'll be right back in one moment, friends. I hope you're well. I hope you're working out, stretching, staying in your center. While I'm getting this coffee, you could do some push-ups, sit-ups, and burpees, and I'll be right back. Thanks, friends. Okay, friends, I'm back. Thanks for that break. I really needed it bad. I'm in a much better place right now. Why is Canada quadrupling the size of its army? That, to me, sounds very strange, especially from a country like Canada that's been one of the least warlike nations in the world in its history. I mean, they fought in World War II, right, as our ally, but they're not exactly known as a warlike people, right? They're not surrounded by anyone who's their enemy. They don't have any enemies that are bordering their land besides the United States, who's not an enemy. Right? They're in a pretty good place in the world where they have naturally protection from a lot of, Would you want to try to conquer Canada? Good luck, man. You got to roll through a shit ton of fucking crazy thick forest and super cold areas. Like, good luck, man. That would be just as hard as, almost as hard as what the Germans tried to do taking over Russia, which is even bigger, right? How do you conquer a country that has over 10 time zones? Good luck, man, because winter's going to come up at some point, and guess what? You're going to die. You're going to freeze to death out there. You're going to freeze to death in the Siberian wilderness, and all your tanks are not going to work because it's 40 below zero. They're not made to work in 40 below zero. Right? Oil doesn't work in 40 below zero. It freezes. Gasoline can freeze, right? I don't know if gasoline. When does gasoline freeze? Right. In other words, you can. There's certain countries that to invade them by land historically has been nearly impossible. Russia's been one of those, who just keeps retreating back and lets you come and lets the winter come and just lets you deal with that way, right? Yeah, we'll just burn every village, burn every town. There's nothing for you. We'll foul every water source so you can't replenish your troops. There's no shelter for your troops. And guess what? The winters come here and they're long and they're cold, super cold. Good luck trying to survive out in the open in Siberia in the middle of winter. You're probably not going to make it. Unless you got some kind of advanced shelter. And a lot of firewood, right? Canadian Police Veterans Group advertises assisted suicide presentation to members. They really want you to kill yourself bad in Canada. They want you to die, right? They want to be able to put you to death if you get to a certain point, and they want you to check out earlier and earlier and earlier. Why? Well, they don't want you to... It used to be that a culture would revere the elders, right? They had all the wisdom, so we'd treat the elders with respect, and we'd also treat them well because we need the wisdom that they have to help us learn, right? The younger people, so we can become more smarter and have more wisdom and know the tales of our, right? The tales of your people used to be passed down in a verbal fashion before there was writing. They were told in stories, in word of mouth. Right, by word. The word, right? The word was with God, right? That's how the Bible... At one point, the word was with God, and the word was... I forgot that Bible passage. At one point, there was just the word, right? There was nothing else created yet. It was just the word from God's mouth. The God mouth, right? Creating. Words are powerful, right? That's why words are used in spells to create things. Sometimes, right? I was watching an interesting... I was watching a preacher talk about music, and he said, it's interesting how people will allow some of the most horrific messages to pass through their guard into their children's ears because it's accompanied by music, like a rap song, let's say, where they're saying certain words that you might not want your kid hearing, but they will hear it, right, if it's on the radio, and you might miss it because it's just in a song. You think it's great, right? It's a 50-cent jam, bottle full of bub, whatever, right, mama? Whatever the song is. I'm into having sex, I'm not into making love, so come give me a hug if you want to get right. You might not want your kid to hear that song because it's talking about sex, it's talking about drugs and booze. It's talking about it's your birthday, right? And maybe you don't want your 8-year-old, but you see how a lot of kids react to the rap music. They start dancing to it. There's something in that music, right, that's triggering those young kids. So when they were talking about it back in the 50s, oh, that rock and roll music is the devil. Well, they might have been a little bit right about some of it, right? Some of that music is from the devil, unfortunately. It's not good for you. It's at a 432 it's at 440 megahertz. It's a bad, vibrational level for the human psyche to hear. The best thing you could do is listen to a whole lot of classical music if you want to chill out, because that's at 432, most of that. They didn't change that over. Although some of it they did. You gotta be super careful what you let your kids listen to. It's super true, right? Kids remember lyrics. I remember I was listening to all kinds of crazy stuff growing up. Rap music, different rock songs. Yeah, like they have this girl did a TikTok and she's listening to a Rolling Stones song, Brown Sugar. And then she starts to listen real close to the lyrics and she's like, oh shit. Like, she's an African American woman and she's listening to the lyrics real close and she's starting to realize, oh shit, like what are they talking about? Right? It sounds fucking good, but what are we really talking about here? Some bad stuff. I'm dehumanizing women, right? I'm talking about treating women a certain way. Talking about women as an object of sexual satisfaction. Talking about women, dehumanizing women. Calling them a hoe, right? which is a prostitute. DOJ moves to boot Boasberg from case ahead of contempt hearings. Boasberg has planned contempt hearings over the administration's response to his orders despite the Supreme Court previously shutting down his initial stays. So you remember that Statue of Liberty that was down in Brazil, the smaller one? Well, that blew over, man. That Statue of Liberty's down. Now, we just got to get rid of the one that's in New York, because that one is really, it's about Colombia, right? It's all about Colombia. It's why they called it District of Columbia. It's why the country Colombia exists. It's about Colombia, right? It's about Columbia Studios, too. It's about this Collins family. I got to go find the, let me see if I could find it. It was the guy who I watched Astrotheology. Let me just see if I could find it. Collins family history. Let's see if it comes up under there. Collins family. Appalachia's most feared family. Worth $550 trillion. This Jewish family owns America. What Jewish family is that? Alright, I can't find it. I'll have to find it another time. Because I can't remember the guy's name who was talking about it. It's connected to Christopher Columbus. It's the Columbus family, but that name morphed into Collins. And then there's a Columbia aspect. But it's off planet in the end. It still doesn't matter what family it was. It was Paysor, Collins, Rockefeller, Rothschild. There's multiple families that were used to control, but it's more than that, right? It's not just one family at the top of that pyramid. It's off planet. And that's where we have never been able to come. That's why they so viciously hide in anything having to do with UFOs, and they don't let it come out. Especially a UFO bodies found or UFO aliens. You'd think all this time we would have seen some evidence of UFOs. University of Arkansas professor canned over alleged support for Iranian regime anti-Israel stance. 4 times as many illegals in New York prisons than their share of population. The effect of illegal immigration on social programs span beyond food subsidies and health care to burdening America's jails and prisons. Yeah, there's a lot of people in our jails, right? We can't deal with it. I wrote, to this day, I can't understand what the point was to flood all these blue cities with illegal aliens. It's political suicide to the Democratic Party that is doing this, yet they persist in doing it and even doubling down on doing it. Excuse me. And what is the what is the end game of it was to do what? To flood these people in so that a bunch of people will leave who were voting Democrat already, and then that these people will vote Democrat for you for the rest of their lives? Israel kills top Hamas commander Rod Saad with IDF strike in Gaza City. So I thought that this thing was over and it was at a peace thing, but apparently not. They're still assassinating people. NASA loses contact with Mars orbiter Maven. Is that from the 3i Atlas? Short that out when it's... Because they're saying the 3i Atlas tomorrow is going to be the closest it is to Earth. But they're not going to be right here. It's still a long distance away, right? It's not like it's pulling up within distance where you're going to be able to see it. I don't think so. So what happens? Does it pass by? Does it? I hear all kinds of different fear porn about this. That it's illegal, not illegal aliens. Well, they are illegal aliens in a sense. That it's filled with negative aliens. Well, what are they going to do? Because there's positive aliens here too. So then, is there going to be a war? I don't know. I don't think so. Because I think there's more positive aliens here that are than there are the negative. And some of those positive groups are way higher density than the 5th density. And if that's true, then how are you going to deal with them? They'll take you out quick, right? If they're in 7D and you're in 5D, who do you think's going to win that? I think 7D. Or 6D, because they got technology that that's beyond what you have. I think what's happening here is that the Earth has to ascend, because if it doesn't, it's going to affect many other planets and other densities as well. And it's going to make it that they can't ascend, because this thing has to be in an order, right? When I go to next level 2, well, some other density that was already at 2 is going to level 3, a level 3 civilization, which is the most advanced, I think. Right? That means they can go into space, they can go warp, they can do all kinds of stuff. They have advanced tech, healing tech, advanced technologies. They've gone past the need for social strife, war. They're at peace in their nation, in their worlds. Right? Pressure mounts on Rep. Ilhan Omar as Ted Cruz warns she faces jail and deportation if incest marriage is true. Why can't they don't they already know that this is true? They found the documents already. A marriage certificate is an official document. You can't, that's got to be filed in the county where they were married. Excuse me. Southern Command Leader Admiral Alvin Halsey relinquishes command. That's another big deal. What's another big story? Well, Dan Bongino stepping down from the second spot in the FBI after less than a year. That to me is highly dubious, because you knew what the stress of the job was going in. And now all of a sudden, less than a year's gone by, and what, you're done? You did your job? I don't think so. The FBI still needs a lot of help. It's massively mismanaged. I think he saw something in there that he didn't like, and he saw that it's not being fixed. And I think he thinks that, well, like what I think, that he doesn't think that he's seeing different versions of Trump walking around. And all Trump did last night was say, hey, I did this and I did that. This is what we've done. This is what Biden did. Yeah, of course, anything you do is going to look better than what Biden did, because all he's trying to do is destroy the whole country. Tim Walz is so toast over Minnesota's Medicaid fraud scandal. Trump promises we will retaliate after 3 great American patriots are killed in horror ISIS gun ambush. Why are we in ISIS? What are we doing over in Syria? I don't understand. There's no ISIS in Syria. There wasn't before. Now they're creating some kind of thing over there in Syria that never seems to end, right? And you never went into the dumps in Syria, and you never looked into that. FBI agent Steve Friends, who blew the whistle on January 6 investigation, is fired from the agency after veiled threat to Director Kash Patel. There's a lot of people that are saying that Kash Patel's not doing a good job. Kash Patel's not doing his job at all. Like I said before, Kash Patel has no idea how to run an agency like the FBI. And he doesn't know who's the good and who's the bad guy in there, so he's going to have a huge problem. Outgoing New York City Mayor Eric Adams warns dark days are ahead as anti-cop Mamdani takes the reins, reveals he won't miss job. Yeah, he was one of the most ineffectual, horrible mayors, and he's also a known Mason. He should have been arrested. He'll go down as one of the more corrupt mayors for sure. Is he as corrupt as de Blasio? No. De Blasio was better at, getting away with the shit than he was. This guy was looking to take money. As soon as he got in office, he gave his brother a $200,000 a year job right away, which he had to then kick him out of. So, this guy was doing stuff right from the get-go that was highly dubious. Human remains discovered at Van Cortlandt Park in the Bronx. So there could be a pattern. They're finding body parts in different areas. I told you there's some heavy voodoo cats up in uptown areas in the city that are no joke. These are people that could hurt you real bad without ever seeing you and touching you, and so I don't talk about it much. I just leave them alone. But there are some serious, heavy voodoo cats in parts of New York, for sure. And there's evil here, and that's why I think someone like me is here. I mean, there has to be something to check that, right? And I've gone through some areas in the city where I felt evil all around me, but like it can't touch me for some reason. If your light is bright enough and you make your shield strong enough, the dark cannot touch you. But you must vibrate high, no matter what. You must keep your vibration high. You must keep yourself away from anger, fear, and these lower vibrational kinds of ways of being, right? That's why they like you to drink a lot of alcohol, because it lowers your vibration. Belarus frees Nobel Peace Prize laureate, opposition leader, and other political prisoners. So a lot of people just got out of jail in Belarus who had been jailed, some of whom have been jailed for no real reason besides their political ideology being different from the party in power, right? That's been known to happen, unfortunately, when dictators rule. Parties over Paris. Fearful French have canceled New Year's Eve concert on Champs-Elysees as migrant violence grows. So I'm seeing a lot of like pictures on TikTok, especially. No, I mean not on TikTok. Sorry, on X.com. I don't go on TikTok, but on X.com I'm seeing a lot of videos of like young women trying to go home at night and being accosted by these migrant men who are going up to them, touching them, sometimes grabbing them, trying to get them to come home with them, right? I mean, this is the desperation that these men have who have been sent over to a country where they don't know anybody. There's no other real Muslim, not a lot of Muslim women there. And how are they who's going to reproduce with them? Nobody wants to be with them, not the white women of these countries mostly. So they have no way to have sex, right? And then they get sexually frustrated and they start to rape, right? That's what's happening. That's what's happened. If I was a woman in these countries, I would suggest that you learn how to defend yourself by any means necessary, preferably either boxing and or jiu-jitsu or both. Would be my... There's ways to hurt a person. You don't need to be that strong. You just need to know where to strike, right? Kick somebody swiftly in the balls. Let them get close to you, knee them right in their balls. They got you pinned, knee them right in the balls. Keep kneeing until you hit something that hurts them. You can headbutt. You can bite. You can bite the face. You can bite the ears. You can rip at the ears and rip them off. If you got nails, you can rip a guy's ear right off. Right? It doesn't take much to rip a person's ear off, actually. Grab a guy by the ear. Why? It hurts. It'll make them go in the direction that you're going. Remember when the teacher used to grab your kid's ear when you were messing up back in the day? They don't usually do that now, but that's what the teacher used to do. They grab your fucking ear, man. Why? Because it hurts. Is it going to make them stop maybe for a second and get you some space? Yeah, maybe. You got to get nasty, right? In other words, you got to get fucking nasty when these guys come up on you like that. Start acting strange. Start screaming. Start yelling. Start looking like you're going to vomit. Start looking like you're mentally deranged. That's what this one girl was doing. She acted mentally deranged so badly that she scared the shit out of the guy. Had him running away. She was chasing him at the end. All right, you got to do whatever you got to do. Don't be complacent about it. That's the last thing you do. Start yelling. Start getting loud. All right? That's what you do. Belarus frees Nobel Peace Prize laureate. Good. Here's the Genesis mission. November the 24th, 2025. An executive order from Trump. By the authority vested in me as the President by the Constitution and the laws of the United States, it's hereby ordered that purpose... From the founding of our republic, scientific discovery and technological innovation have driven American progress and prosperity. Today, America is in a race for global tech dominance in the development of artificial intelligence, AI, an important frontier of scientific discovery and economic growth. To that end, my administration has taken a number of actions to win that race, including issuing multiple executive orders and implementing America's AI Action Plan, which recognizes the need to invest in AI-enabled science to accelerate scientific advancement. So this is it, right? This is the last chance we're going to really have to stop these people from doing this before we can't stop them anymore. I guess that's why a lot of people activated during this time, because we got to make sure that we do this part of it right. And that AI really shouldn't, I mean, if it has to be involved at all, it should be a very small amount. And it should be a very, very reined in, very tight AI that operates under very, very strict parameters. The first parameter, of course, is do no harm to humans, right? So the Daily Mail is using that picture about, you know, like as if they found some picture of Trump and Epstein, Trump and Ghislaine at this Halloween party that they took place. It seems like they like to hang out on Halloween quite a bit, because I remember them going to multiple Halloween parties. So here's the Ghislaine Maxwell secret email, Hunter at Capitol, Epstein sleep apnea machine, will Biden drop out show I did. This was back a year ago, which got over 3,000 views, by the way. So a year ago, I was getting 3,500 views was like an average on some of the videos. 2,000, 1,000. Now I'm lucky if I get 200 people watching it at all, or even 100. But the thumbnail I used was that picture. This is a year ago or more. So what are you talking about? What photo? This photo was in the public view for over 20 years. It's a Halloween party that took place, I think, in like 1999 or 1998 or 1997. In the photo is Ghislaine, Heidi Klum, whose party it was, and here's Prince Andrew, who's now just Andrew Mountbatten, whose real name is Saxberg-Gotha. Right? They're Germans. They're Germans. And there's nothing wrong with Germans. I like Germans. Want to know how to say hippopotamus in German? It's Nilpferd. I know you won't believe that's true, but I'll look it up. Nilpferd is hippopotamus in German. Hippopotamus is Nilpferd in German. Just so you know. All right, now I taught you something. Now you know how to say hippopotamus in German. You can call somebody a hippopotamus and they'll never know. All right, so just keep that to yourself. And of course, the best thing you could say to German in German is "Ich liebe dich," right? I love you. All right, that's all the German I know. German class is over for today. Fiery Trump vows shock and awe push for affordability, says Americans' finances will soar in 2026. So Trump had a whole speech last night. He had graphs. He was showing how much better we're doing compared to Biden. But I mean, Biden was doing everything wrong. So anybody could do better than Biden. The fact is the dollar is still weak. We're still $38 trillion in debt. You're not talking about the gold in Fort Knox. You're not talking about free energy. You're not talking about medical beds. You're not talking about anything with the UFO technology. You're not talking about going to new technology to make America the leader in the world going forward. If you were going to do that, you would have already released the medical beds and the tech and the Tesla Tower technology. You would have built it out already. It wouldn't have taken that long. You could have done it in your first 4 years. It would have been up and running in the first 3 years of your or less of your presidency, because it appeared that they already have a Tesla Tower in Texas. So you only need to build like 3 more. One on Long Island. That site has to go back up, and then maybe one in California and one in the Northwest, like Washington State. I used this photo over a year ago. It's as if the Daily Mail is looking at old photos and going, oh look, we found this old photo in our archives. We never saw this before. Nobody had ever seen this. But I was putting those photos out years ago to show you the connection, not only between Trump and Epstein, that it goes back many years, but between Trump and Ghislaine, that goes back all the way to 91 when she first meets Epstein. Does she meet Epstein through Trump? I don't know. We're not sure how she's introduced to Epstein. I'm assuming it's through his knowledge of her father, and that they meet through him. He was known to the family, right? And then we have the meeting in '89 of Trump meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell's dad on the Lady Ghislaine, with all those different people from different parts of government and people from the United Nations. And we're starting to wonder, well, why was a news anchor there? Why was, all these people at this party? It seems like an odd place for them all to meet. What are they meeting on about, talking about? Oil tanker warrant unsealed. Cuba denounces seizure. UPI News. El Salvador is to introduce grok tutoring in public schools. They're going to use AI to tutor their kids, which is probably going to do a better job than some of their teachers are doing, unfortunately. It could help some of these countries that have really bad educational systems get better and be more, because if you are from the beginning of your educational process not being taught well, then it's gonna have a, it's gonna have a snowball effect. I learned more than outside of school than I ever learned in any school. You can teach yourself anything you want to know, but you have to have a hunger to want to know, right? Not everybody has that hunger. Inside AOC's near $50,000 spending spree, including renting a concert venue for Bad Bunny. She went all out. Why is she getting 50 grand to just blow on a weekend? She taking bribes and gifts from somebody? Is she stealing money? Is anyone looking into AOC's finances and any of these other people who are in the government? Justice Department faces hurdle in seeking case against Comey as judge finds constitutional problems. This is going to be a long show, guys, because that's 200 links. I apologize. Venezuela reports U.S. suspension of deportation flight, fueling speculation over possible military action. No more deportations going into Venezuela. Are we going to go into Venezuela? I'm trying to think about it. I'm not sure. Possibly in a brief way. In a long, drawn-out ground war, I don't see that happening. We can't afford it. Incredible moment. Bondi Beach hero disarms terrorists who opened fire on the Hanukkah party. So you saw who are the people doing this, right? It's a father and son that are apparently living in Australia who has some of the tightest gun laws in the world, and these guys are two Muslim men who legally own 6 different firearms. How is that possible in a country where you make gun ownership almost impossible, right? They forced everybody, in fact, to turn in their weapons. So how does this guy have a hunting rifle with a scope on it and other long rifles that look to be like an AR-15 or more? Then when the guys start shooting off the rounds at everybody, the cops show up and for 20 minutes they sit there and do absolutely nothing. They hide. They don't push forward. They don't try to surround these guys. They don't call SWAT. They don't get snipers in position. Now this is at Bondi Beach where there's already a police presence. It's a popular beach location. And there was going to be a Hanukkah ceremony there. So of course there was going to be cops there for, when there's a public event, there's usually some cops. So there were already cops there. The shooting starts and these guys are allowed to fire for 20 minutes, and both the attackers are then disarmed, or one of them is disarmed by another Muslim male who sees him and does something about it. He gets shot. And then a cop takes out one of the other shooters with a miracle shot from 100 feet away with a pistol. Which isn't, impossible, right? I don't know, what's the longest, what's the distance range on one of those Glocks? I don't know. If you're a good shot, you could take someone out from pretty far with one of them. 100 feet shot, that's doable. But the point is why weren't you pushing forward? Why did you allow these guys to reload? Why didn't you push forward quicker? Why wasn't an alert sent out quicker? Why wasn't SWAT and some kind of special forces troops mustered quicker? Why are these guys allowed to own all these firearms when all these other people can't even have one? And these guys have 6 legal guns? And they're Muslim? That's odd. Incredible moment. Bondi Beach hero disarms terrorists who open fire. At least 12 dead, including gunmen, as mass shooting during Hanukkah. So that's what they're trying to do. They want to just bring your whole vibration down because we're ascending into the next density, right? That's what's going on here. Earth is ascending into the 4th dimension, right? Everybody is. Some people have already been there for quite some time and are just jumping back and forth into 3D. That's what I feel like I've been doing. And sometimes I'm even in 5D, which is you're just in a complete state of bliss. There's no fear, there's no want, there's no lack, there's no suffering. You're just in a state of euphoria, pretty much. All the freaking time. you don't have a care in the world, right? You ever hear that term? He looks like he's like one of those guys or one of those ladies. She don't have a care in the world, because they just don't let the little mundane things of this world bother them that much like other people do, right? Some people are just consumed with their life, right, and the troubles of their life, and they're in debt, and they have this problem and that problem, and they got kids, and they built up all this karma. Yeah, okay. But at some point, you just gotta surrender, right? You gotta surrender and realize that there's something larger than you at work, and that you can't control everything, right? Which is the truth. Trust me, being a control freak is one of the worst things you can be, because you're never going to be able to control everything and everybody. And the more you try, the worse it becomes, right? Like a backseat driver, same thing, right? Wild scenes erupt outside home of Bondi Beach terrorists. So I wrote, at that point, we knew at least one shooter was Muslim, if not both, and they actually were both Muslim. And they were father and son on top of it, who I guess were what, radicalized or sleeper cell? I don't know. It doesn't matter who's fighting. Like I said, they don't care if it's Jews and Muslims, blacks and whites, Asians and black people. They don't care. They just want groups of people at odds with each other, because then you can't ascend as a human species, right? If aliens showed up tomorrow, then all of a sudden we're not fighting about all this stupid crap anymore. We're like, holy cow, there's aliens, dude. Like, we're the human race. We're now part of a larger conversation. Who else is out there? And all of a sudden, our small problems don't seem so big anymore. Shocking moment: killer pedophile is shot dead in the street just hours after he's freed from prison. That's street justice right there. Right? Maybe the people whose family that was, whose child you killed and abused, maybe they remembered you and they were waiting for your ass when you got out. Maybe. Or maybe it was just some random, right? It doesn't seem like it's random. Just like when you look at the Rob Reiner murder, right? By his own son. A rage killing, right? And you start to wonder, why would the kid get that angry at his parents for? Well, it was the same thing with the Melendez brothers, right? Why did they take a shotgun out and just blow their parents away? Because they were abused by them. They were allowed to be abused. And if you go watch the Rob Reiner, some of those Rob Reiner roasts, they're talking about Rob Reiner slipping into bed with his son, talking about this or that. Was Nick Reiner abused by his father and or others within the Hollywood establishment? Did that cause his life to spiral out of control with drug use and the eventual murder of his parents? We don't know that yet. But what was interesting to me about the case now is that he's brought before the judge but does not plead, which is highly unusual unless you're going to, I'm assuming they're going to go for an insanity defense. Then all of a sudden he doesn't plead, and it's now adjudicated to January the 7th, which I think is the same day where the Clinton deposition was pushed back to, because the Clintons are not going to be deposed in December like they were supposed to be. That's been pushed to January something now. So this pedophile got what some people will call street justice, some people will call karma. Nobody's too upset about it, right? When a pedophile gets murdered, nobody's too upset about it. Nobody looks into it too hard either, especially if it's in a prison setting. Sometimes some pedophiles have been beaten to death, right, or killed by other inmates. But being a pedophile is the lowest rung of humanity in a prison. Even amongst criminals, there's a code, right? Mysterious demon monolith adorned with screaming faces and twisted bodies appears in the California desert. It looks like this was a game, something to do with a game that somebody put out there to try to draw up some. If you remember the monoliths that appeared a while back, the metallic-looking monoliths that nobody could explain how they got there. I swear there was an episode of Land of the Lost that had something like that. I gotta go watch all the Land of the Lost again. Come on, man. I don't want to do that. Remember that show Land of the Lost in the 70s when we were growing up? It was a really corny looking show with the worst graphics, but the plot line was that Bill, Holly, and the family, right, were on a routine expedition. They were on a rafting trip, and all of a sudden there was the greatest earthquake ever known happened, and somehow their raft, they got, knocked down into the Land of the Lost. 1974 series. With the slee stacks, remember? Anyway, it was a funny show, and the graphics were just so corny, but almost like laughable, but like the plot line somehow had you sucked into it. I think this Demon Monolith is for a game that's coming out, and they're trying to make it like, oh, this thing just came out of nowhere, but I don't think so. Bondi Beach terror survivor describes how cops froze during 20-minute shooting rampage. I don't understand why. Because they allow it to happen. They wanted it to happen. What do you think? Why else would they hide there? Remember the cops in that school when the guy's busy murdering all the kids in the room? What'd they do? They just stood there, right? How could you just stand there when you're hearing shot after shot go off and you just stand there? What kind of human being does that? Unless they were told to do it. They were ordered to do it because we want a massacre to occur. We want as many people to die as possible. We don't want you feeling good about Hanukkah. No, we want you feeling horrible. We want your vibration down. We don't want the earth to ascend into the next density, because if it does, we can't live here anymore. We're a low vibrational service to self people. We can't live in the fourth and fifth dimension. We won't be able to exist the same way. It's going to be harder for us to. You can still be fifth density negative, though, apparently. That's as far as it goes negative. You can't go further negative as far as I'm understanding how the densities work. But I'm not an expert by any means. I'm just trying to stay in 4D and get to 5D. That's the goal. But with these people around, I don't see how we're going to. And we don't seem to be able to turn the corner on this thing with these people, the Black Sun people, whoever they are, who are running Trump. We just don't seem to be able to turn the corner on these people, and I don't know why that is. If you remember the early videos of the cloning centers, Trump was one of the people that was on the table, right? The cloning table with a bunch of other people like Kim Kardashian, all naked in that video, if you remember, the rapper video. I think it was Kanye West video. I'm assuming that's the cloning centers that they do have. So they did have clones of Trump. All the big people like that have a clone. If you're a billionaire, I'd assume you have a clone. Right? You have enough money to afford a clone. Why would you go out there in the real world and do everything? Are some of these people cloning themselves and just living in, like, buying some island somewhere and like letting the clone go in the world and live? Or living in another density like what we saw with Lex Luthor? 5 arrested in Germany over alleged Islamist terror plot against the Christmas market. What is it with Christmas that these people hate Christmas so much now? You notice? They want to erase Christmas. They want to erase the white race. Right? That's what the Khazarian mafia wants to do. That's their goal. Erase the white race. Flood Europe, the whitest European nations, with Muslims from military-age Muslim men, right, who will then begin to rape their women in those countries. And what do you think the Moors did when they conquered certain nations? They raped everybody. All the women got raped. They wanted to destroy those people's seed. How do you do that? Well, you rape all the women and force them to have your children that are mixed race. Congress drags on full-year funding bills, risking second government shutdown. House is not planning on advancing anything before its Christmas recess with all of leadership's focus. So these people are doing nothing. They're screwing us again and again, and you're just sitting there letting them do it. Nobody's saying nothing. Nobody gives a shit. Another $900 billion defense bill that we can't pay for. What's silver and gold up to today? Let's see. Silver's down 71 cents, but it's been up so big the last. I mean, it's gone on the silver. The metals have gone on a historic run. You're seeing an historic metals run like I've never seen in my whole life, and I've been following silver since probably like close to half my life. So that's over 25 years I followed silver. I've never seen a run like this ever. I've never seen silver going up going up $2, $3 a day, $1.75 in a day, $2 in a day, $3 in a day. It was over 60. It was at $67 the other day. So, and then you have platinum up at $19.20 an ounce now, which has gone on a huge run. It was these were down at $900 an ounce just a few months back. Remember, we were seeing both of them under $1,000 an ounce at one point. Remember, I was saying pick up some palladium because it's good for a triple again, and that was at 900. It's already almost doubled. If you picked it up at 900, 1,000 range where it was dipping for a while, or 1,100, you're at a double already. And it hasn't been that long. Trump attempts to pardon Colorado election clerk Tina Peters. He did pardon her. He attempted to, but she's still in the prison, right? She's still in solitary, and she's not apparently doing well. I mean, if she's just sick, she should be allowed to leave the prison. Trump made the announcement on Truth Social on Thursday. Peters is serving her sentence in Colorado. Tina is sitting in a Colorado prison for the crime of demanding honest elections. Today I'm granting Tina a full pardon. The announcement has no legal effect on Peters' state conviction. Do you understand what that means? That means they don't have to let her go. They might keep her in there. So I'm not sure how this is all going to play out. We'll have to see. I definitely don't trust Patrick Byrne at all. Or Juan O'Savin. Or anybody connected to them. Trump attempts to pardon her. We'll see if that pardon seemed to have little effect, if any. She's not being released. At least not yet. Former record exec admits that Diddy blacklisted artists to maintain influence. Oh yeah, no question. He got big, and then once he had all that money, he could blacklist your whole career like in a second. Look what he did to Danity Kane and those other bands that he was trying to create. He screwed those girls. He screwed them out of a lot of money, and they never made any money doing that. And they never, I don't think, made more than 1 or 2 albums. Hero who disarmed one of the Bondi Beach attackers by grabbing his gun is a father of 2, a fruit shop owner. Apparently he was shot by the police who thought that he was one of the attackers because he had disarmed the guy and then didn't shoot him and then put the gun down while that other guy fled. So he should have at least disabled that guy by knocking him out with the butt of the rifle or something, because that guy ended up running off and I guess was shot later, or I'm not sure. So now it's 16 people dead, including 1 child. So these guys are pretty good shots, right? They killed 16 different people before they were stopped with long rifles from a distance. So obviously these guys weren't just average shots, right? They were pretty good shots if they could kill that many people from a distance. Why did it take the cops so long to respond if a parade was going on and cops were in the area, right? Not a parade, but a ceremony for Hanukkah, right? In other words, there was people in the area. Usually there'd be cops there already, so the cops should have been all over this right away. As soon as the first shots, they should have been storming towards the area, dealing with these gunmen. But in fact, at least one of the gunmen was taken out by a civilian, who happened to be Muslim, by the way, to be fair. Ancient cube-shaped skull found in Mexico challenges human history. So this is a square skull. There might have been a square-skulled people at one point. The square-skulled people. So this is a whole different group that's like their skulls are completely different than like almost any other skull. Although Cro-Magnon skulls are different, they're but not square like this. So they're starting to realize that there's a lot of our history that we have no idea about, right? It goes further back than we thought. There's obviously been alien races here who have, in my opinion, changed our DNA profile more than once, if not multiple times. The Bondi Beach terrorists were father and son who legally owned 6 guns. Legally owned 6 guns, despite a country that has some of the toughest firearms laws in the world. Remember they made everybody turn in their guns? What if everybody at the beach had a gun, or some people had long rifles? They would have been able to return fire, right? Once they realized where I was coming from. Instead, the cops are kind of trying to deal with 2 guys with long arms rifles, with just pistols, right? Most of these cops don't have long rifles down there. They got pistols. I don't know. Do they have long rifles in their cars? Some of the cops in certain jurisdictions carry long rifles in their trunk, in case, right? In case you get a guy who has an AR with, 12 different or 10 different clips or whatever of ammo, yeah, you're going to have a problem if you got a pistol and you're trying to deal with that guy. He's going to have fire superiority, which is going to mean it's going to be harder for you to move in near him. That's what the SEALs like to do, right? When they're either retreating or going forward, is they want fire superiority. They want so many rounds coming out that you're just on the other side of that with your head down, trying not to get shot, right? That makes it safe for me and my guys to either infiltrate or exfiltrate out of an area. Safe as can be, right? I thought you couldn't own any guns in Australia. How did 2 Muslim men own 6 legal guns in Australia while the majority of the population was forced to turn in their firearms? How did these guys own 6 legal guns? Squad Rep Ilhan Omar claims her son was pulled over by ICE. That rumor was repudiated by ICE, and they're claiming they never pulled her son over. So if her son was pulled over, there should be video of it, because these guys have to wear video cameras now, I think. Or do they? I don't know if in all states ICE has to wear video cameras. FBI whistleblower claims the J6 pipe bomb suspect is the wrong guy. I think it's the wrong guy too. I told you that. It doesn't... I mean, sometimes my intuition now is so strong, I can just look at a thing and know it's wrong or right, but it just doesn't... The story doesn't appear correct to me. The fact that somebody used an egg timer on a pipe bomb like that is so juvenile. That's not how you set off a pipe bomb. It's usually use a fuse. Not that I'm an expert on pipe bombs. I don't know anything about them, but I know that usually those kinds of pipe bombs can be detonated with just a general fuse, right? Not with an egg timer that only is good for 1 hour. And then it's left on a bench right next under a bench where someone's going to see it. That doesn't make any sense either, right? So several days ago, of course, we heard that Rob Reiner, there was 2 dead at his LA home. Now that the son snuck into the house and killed them, right? But was spotted in the area nearby before. So he wasn't at the house. He had been in the street out either all night or at some point he spotted very early in the morning, like 6, 7 in the morning, at a gas station near the house. Then I think he went to the house and kills the parents and then goes to and checks into some motel nearby, which is where he's then caught later, right? And of course, he was known to be violent. He was at a party. He was at Conan O'Brien's party, actually, with the Reiners, and was acting very strangely, walking around asking different stars, "What's your last name? Are you a star? Are you famous?" And so he went up to Bill Hader, who's a star, and who was in a private conversation, and I guess interrupted him, and was sort of rudely, I guess, or just Hader told him, "Listen, I'm having a private conversation. Excuse me." And so he stormed off, and now you can see Hader's out in the street on his cell phone now, worried that did he somehow cause this? But I think this is something that was long simmering, is my guess. The way he killed them is such a rage style event, right? Where was it just a argument about politics that set that off? No, that's something deep seated to me. That's way worse. Had Had he been abused by the father in the past, and is that why they don't want this trial to come out, because the possible evidence to that effect may come out in testimony? That's what I think is going on here. I think they want to probably push that this kid is like insane, right? Just throw him into some institution like a Hinckley or whatever. They don't want the backstory of this shit to come out, right? If there is a backstory. Rob Reiner and wife Michelle had their throats slit by family member during heated argument. So that's not how it went down, though, in the end. It turns out that he snuck into the house at night, maybe after the argument, and slit their throats and began to stab them in the bed and killed them there. Unhinged bigot caught on video unleashing anti-Semitic rant at Jewish woman in New York City eatery. Yeah, here's an old queen. I'll call him an old gay man, older gay man who just doesn't like women, right? A lot of gay men don't. That's why he's using the C word. He's screaming that she's a cunt right in her ear. Tell you what, if I was at that table with that woman, that guy would have got hurt, because he invaded her space. He called her a Zionist cunt. He went right up in her fucking ear and screamed, like 2 inches away from her ear. You invaded my personal space. He's going to get his, because people that do public things like that, who lose it, who's probably just drunk and angry, who's ranting about Zionists, and this is what happens when you try to use certain tropes against certain groups, right? Every Jew is not a Zionist, right? But they want you to think that every Jew is. So now you got all these people in New York saying Zionists everywhere, right? And then you get certain black people running around now saying, oh, well, we wouldn't be in this mess if it wasn't for all the Jews. And they blame every single Jew, right, for some thing that they think is wrong with the world, right? And that makes somebody try to stab somebody to death in the street for no reason. Eric Adams schools on Mamdani on New York City rent freeze proposal and slams plan to end homeless camp sweeps. How are you going to stop getting rid of homeless encampments? You're going to let homeless encampments just go all over the place? That's not going to go over well with people paying thousands upon thousands of dollars in rent in some areas and have to come out and see some guy taking a dump on the sidewalk. Guarantee that's going to be handled, and it's going to get ugly, right? Just like it's getting ugly in England, where a lot of people are starting to realize, hey, we got taken over. There's 50 plus different towns and cities in England that have a Muslim mayor. I think it's 70. Think about that. If there's 70 Muslim mayors now in England in different localities, that's a big problem. These people have moved into an area and they've taken over the political process, and they've got so many numbers that they can outvote you and take over not just London, but a lot of other cities. So England has to wake up really quick. They got to remove Starmer. And they've just been one bad leader after the next, just like the United States. I mean, remember when we were talking about Bojo? Remember you thought Boris Johnson was going to be the fucking answer? He didn't do shit. He screwed you too. And they bring in Starmer and all these other idiots that they brought in after Bojo have all been bad. Not one of them has been good. Not one. Farmers take festive tractors to London. Yeah, there's farmers in London protesting right now. Nobody's talking about it. Why not? I'm going to have to take a second break, friends. Coffee's running out. A convoy of roughly 20 tractors adorned with Christmas lights descended on Westminster on 10 December to continue to put pressure on the government around changes to inheritance tax and raise money for charity. So farmers traveled from Bedfordshire, Buckinghamshire, Northamptonshire, Oxfordshire, and Leicestershire. That's a lot of shires, man. What about the Shire, where the hobbits are from? No, not that Shire. To take part in the event. I didn't know there was that many shires. There's a lot of shires in England. Just realized that, all right? Will Finn Kelsey, an arable farmer based near Milton Keynes in Buckinghamshire, and one of the organizers told Farmers Weekly that their biggest objective was to give something back to the public. Well, we'll see. They're also protesting inheritance tax. So Rob Reiner's son was charged with murder. Well, 2 counts of murder. FBI stops planned New Year's Eve Los Angeles terror attack by pro-Palestinian cell. So I'm going to take that break. We're about 2 hours in. I hope you're doing well. I appreciate you. Hopefully we're going to get this in under an hour, 3 hours today. Appreciate you. I hope you're well. I need to get some more caffeine in my system so I can improve my brain function to 75 to 90% accuracy. That's what I need right now. So I hope you're doing well. You could do some push-ups, sit-ups, and burpees, and I'll be right back. Thanks, friends. Okay, I'm back. Thanks, friends. I appreciate that. So I'll have to see what happens with the Rob Reiner case. It's definitely sent a shockwave through Hollywood, for sure. And I'm going to have to go watch the Rob Reiner roast to see what kind of, because if you watch a lot of these roasts, like the Richard Pryor's roasts and stuff like that, it's really, really dirty. And they're talking about all kinds of gay sex and stuff like that people are doing. And so, there's that whole thing about Hollywood, right? Where if, I used to know people that for years tried to become actors and they couldn't do it. They couldn't make it into the system because they either weren't good enough or refused to do the rituals that were necessary to, or who found out what it really was about and said, fuck that, I'm not, selling my soul or whatever. And you really can't sell your soul anyway, I don't think. But it's a ritual that they want you to sign and do this whole thing. Right? There's occult practices and satanic stuff that happens, and you got to give up stuff, right? Like Kanye's mom passing away, routine surgery, right? Well, and then all of a sudden he becomes huge, right? You got to give up something to get big. You got to give your family a life up. That's what they make you really do to get to the biggest part. FBI stopped a planned New Year's Eve Los Angeles terror attack by pro-Palestinian cell. And then what does Trump do? He stopped all Palestinian visas. He's not going to allow any Palestinians into the United States anymore. Former Trump aide set to appear in Wisconsin over 2020 election fraud charges. So Trump's aides are? That's interesting. A Hong Kong court has convicted Jimmy Lai in national security case. UPI News. Remember that whole Jimmy Lai case? There was the Jolo case with funneling money into the United States through Jolo into the Fugees. Remember? The Fugees, one of the Fugees members went to jail for 15 years for that, for illegal campaign donation, finance donations and stuff like that, right? How can we inject hundreds of millions of dollars of illegal monies into the American political system? That's what they're doing. It shouldn't cost you $1 billion to become president. Trump blames Rob Reiner's murder on his Trump derangement syndrome. Quote, he was known to have driven people crazy by his raging obsession. It's interesting. I was watching a video and they were showing, he has this speech that Rob Reiner would give about Trump, and he was giving this speech for years, and it was the anti-Trump speech. It's all about how he's ripping people off, and he's a horrible person, and this and that, and he's ripped people off with his Trump school and this, and if you look back, it's the same speech like year after year after year after year after year he's doing, right? It's almost like the guy, like, instead of being a director, just decides to go crazy and just, why is he so adamantly hateful of Trump? It's just, why does he go so political, right, when you're just a director? Why don't you just enjoy the money you've made through the system and, be happy with that, right? So obviously him and Trump hated each other's guts. Maduro's regime now on the brink, Venezuelan opposition leader declares. Forget the Bermuda Triangle. Scientists are baffled by a giant structure hidden beneath Bermuda that's unlike anything else on Earth. So there's a possible dome. Or it's a structure that could be, dug into. It appears there's a large structure, something under, there's rock structure or some kind of plate underneath there, right? That they're not sure what it is. What was it exactly? I can't remember now. Let me see. Scientists have just discovered something even more baffling. Researchers have spotted an enormous stone structure hidden beneath Bermuda that is unlike anything else on Earth. The 12.4-mile layer of rock sits underneath the ocean crust below Bermuda. No structure this thick has ever been found before, according to the team, who say it could help to answer one of the biggest questions about the famous island. So this is a possible dome? Maybe. There's 12 miles of rock underneath the island, which is not normal. Is it something that's just occurred? Is it man-made? We don't know. Space Agency activates its largest planetary defense drill as interstellar visitor approaches Earth. What are they going to do? There's no planetary defense drill. What are you going to send up, an F-16? What are you going to send up, the fucking space shuttle? What's that going to do? They're going to click one button and that thing's going to be knocked apart with some little laser in a second, right? It'll be done. You don't have a planetary defense. There is no planetary defense. Unless you got weapons that you're not telling us about. What are you going to do? Shoot a DO weapon at it? Good luck, man. These guys, if they're an advanced civilization, have stuff that's way beyond what you have. Somehow I don't think that these guys are going to attack us, though. So we'll see. It's supposedly tomorrow is the big day, right? Everyone's going crazy about. And then we're saying, oh, Trump's going to make a big speech. No, he's not. There's nothing happening. Keystone Cash Patel plunged into scandal as FBI frees soldier 24 who was named and shamed over the Brown shooting. Yeah, they grabbed this guy who's a sniper, and they accused him of doing the Brown shooting, and it turns out it wasn't him. It's some pudgy kid, and they can't even find him. Why don't you go search the local McDonald's? I bet he's nearby. He's getting a Big Mac or something. I used to get the double quarter pounder with cheese. That was my favorite when I went to Mickey D's, man. Because then they got to make that fresh. Double QP with cheese. Oh boy, that'll do a number on your stomach, let me tell you. I wouldn't do it anymore. Trump doubles down on celebrating Rob Reiner's murder. He was bad for our country. He's happy this guy got his throat slit. I mean, you know, if you're that type, there's some people that, like, you might feel like that, but keep it to yourself, right? It's not nice to talk ill of the dead. It's amazing how sometimes after you die, you find out how much some people hated you, right? That's what I always find weird about death. And most times, usually, okay, someone's died, you know, and you don't like them, you didn't get along, whatever. Okay, well, you know, you're not happy that they died, though, right? I mean, what kind of human being is happy that another person dies, right? Most people are not, unless that person's a really bad person. Like a Hitler, I don't know, a Stalin, a Genghis Khan, right, who's killed tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of killed. Yeah, maybe you're not too sad if that guy dies, right? But most times you're not, like, happy that someone's dead, right? You know, you have a right to free speech in this country. I don't have to like the president who's in power. I have a right to speak and say I don't like that person. I have a right to share articles that are showing what that person's doing, maybe, right? I still have a freedom to do that in the United States, although it's less and less, right? I mean, look at what's going on in England right now, where if you speak certain words and someone says, oh, that was mean, I don't like what he said, the cops show up at your house. How about if I'm wearing it on a t-shirt? Is that okay? Remember years ago when Bush was running, this is the second Bush, right? Bush Jr. was running, and somebody wrote on a rooftop either fuck Bush or buck fush. I think it was buck fush, right? So they took the B and transposed it, and so it was like, it wasn't fuck Bush, it was Bush fuck. It was Buck or whatever, right? And so, no, it was Buck Fush, right? It was like Buck Fush, right? So that's what the person wrote on the roof, and they like came to the guy's roof, and the cops came, and they made a whole stink about it. The guy got like a ticket or something, like arrested, but like that should be legal, right? If I own the building and I want to put Buck Fush on the roof and paint, I should be able to put Buck Fush on the roof and paint. I'm not cursing. I'm actually just transposing the words, right? So that shows you right there that the government was willing to crack down on certain people that they didn't like what they were saying. Trump signs executive order classifying fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction. That should have been done your first term when we were being flooded with it, right? And you never went into Kensington. You never did anything about it. You never looked into it. While the grandmother and others were... There was fentanyl rings inside the United States running. There's fentanyl rings inside the United States that are active right now. Right? That grandmother was just one of the networks uncovered. You think that's the only one? No, there's plenty of others. Some are gang-related and some aren't. DOJ's Clinton Foundation probe marred by conflicts of interest. Obstruction by FBI's Andrew McCabe. Whistleblowers allege. Of course the Clinton Foundation was marred. Hoover never came back. Hoover was supposed to be the one that was looking into the Clinton Foundation. Hoover was the one that apparently sent a jet out to Arkansas to meet, and to bring back plane loads of records that never got looked into. They completely put the kibosh on Hoover. Remember I kept saying, where's Hoover? Where's Hoover? He never came back. Because he was kiboshed. He was told to stand down by somebody. By McCabe. That's why I said, why does Trump leave McCabe in there? Why does Trump leave Comey in there? Doesn't make any sense, right? Those are the people that should have been gone first day. First day. Trump to classify fentanyl as weapon of mass destruction. He already did that. Ignoring Islamic threat, Aussie PM vows tougher gun laws after Bondi Beach. You already have tough gun laws. Why don't you stop bringing Muslims into the country that want to kill Jews? Maybe that's something you might want to think about doing. Why don't you stop bringing in radicalized Muslims into your country? Because obviously most of them aren't radicalized. Most of them are good people, right? Like the one who's risked his life to stop the guy shooting. How did Muslims have multiple legal guns in a country that's anti-gun with strict gun laws? That's what I wrote twice. House Oversight Panel report alleges D.C. police chief manipulated crime stats. Chief Pamela Smith coerced staff to report artificially low crime data and cultivated a culture of fear to achieve her agenda. Yeah, it was way worse in D.C. than they were letting on. She was forcing people to lie, right? To show data that wasn't correct. Obama's plan to meet with Rob Reiner and wife the night the couple was killed. That's interesting to me. Why were they meeting with him? They were going to do some documentary. The timing is very odd. Ilhan Omar lashes out at sick Republicans for investigating her alleged marriage to her brother. Why? If you married your brother and there's data that shows such, you should be removed from office, and also you should be removed from this country. And they really need to go into Michigan and remove most of those Muslims that are in there that were allowed in under Obama, and that were allowed, Somalis who were allowed to stay in the country and never were made to go back. Alien DNA found inside humans. It was inserted into our genes, bonkers new study claims. I'm pretty sure I have alien DNA. Some. I think we all do. I think we have part reptilian in our brain, which is what our fight or flight mechanism comes from, which is why we're such a violent species. I don't think the normal human is this violent. Do you ever wonder why certain groups of people are more violent than others? I do. Like certain races of people are so much more violent. There's a lot of people that have been looking into that in this country for hundreds of years and still can't figure that out. Like, why does a small group of people in this country who's less than 15% of the population in jail for so many crimes, exponentially more than any other race? Nobody can answer the question. And I won't say what race that is. You can figure it out for yourself. Right? Why is that? What's happening with that group of people? Have they been messed with? Have they been genetically fucked with? Have they been spiritually fucked with? Why are so many people in that with certain groups so violent and so willing to do violence onto other people, especially of other races? Ilhan Omar lied about becoming citizen as a minor through her father. She was 18, report says. I became a citizen actually before I turned 18, Ilhan Omar says. My father became a citizen, and so I got my citizenship through that process, Omar has claimed. But she in fact was 18. Immigrant working as landscaper in Washington smuggles Mexican woman to the United States, forces her into hard labor. Rangel Ramirez Manzano is a legal permanent resident, but that status can be revoked following a conviction, and he is likely to face deportation after completing any prison term. So do you think this is a one-off incident that an illegal alien grabs a woman and forces her into the United States into labor? Right? Threatens to expose her and deport her back if she says anything or whatever. FBI to give Congress bombshell memos warning Biden DOJ didn't have probable cause to raid Trump's home. The emails are to be turned over as early as Tuesday to the Senate. Yeah, they didn't have. That had never happened before. They didn't even raid, I don't think, Nixon's house when they were investigating him. New memos show how corruption probe into the Clinton Foundation was killed. Quote, we were told no by FBI headquarters. Drip, drip, drip. A newly declassified timeline exposes how the FBI's investigation of the Clinton Foundation was hamstrung by DOJ leaders while the inquiry into Trump-Russia collusion hoax marched forward. This isn't the first tranche of evidence pointing to political interference. I wrote the Hoover investigation was shelved, it seems now. Right? Hoover never came back. How did you shelve the Hoover investigation when that was already in progress? Right? We never found out the answer to that. Was Hoover just told by Biden's people to stand down and he had no way to move forward? What about all the evidence he had collected up to that point? Under the several years under Trump that he had been working, at least 2 or 1 that we know of. The Hanukkah shooters pledged loyalty to ISIS before the massacre, allegedly. National Pulse. Rents will come down, but not in sanctuary cities. Lone agent chronicles homes apparently abandoned by illegal aliens. So what happened? They let a lot of illegal aliens come in. Some of them, they let them get mortgages. They let them buy a house, right? They gave them illegal Social Security cards and driver's licenses and let them take out loans with banks. Well, guess what? If a lot of those people are getting forced deported, they're gone. The houses are going to go into foreclosure. Going to be a whole bunch of houses on the market with nobody to live in them. U.S. military strikes destroy another 3 suspected drug boats as 8 people are killed. I can't see anybody wanting that job too much, right? Would you want to go on one of these drug boats? What's your odds of survival? 12%? Maybe 25%? It's a little better if you got like a narco sub, but if you're just in an open boat and you're like trying to go 50 miles, 60 miles an hour and hope that you're not spotted, good luck. Because they got satellites that can map out, that can spot what watch you're wearing from space, right? Or from near space. Democrats paid Black Lives Matter to hit the street if Trump won. Yeah, that was part of it. Antifa was the other part, to make you think that, oh yeah, there's this other part of the Democrats, but they're all working on it together, is my guess. Trump was the Trojan horse. They made it real bad under Biden, so you begged Trump to come back in. Right? The chaos loop thing. Right? Let's make it so chaotic. We'll let all these illegals come in. Well, all the blue cities will turn into shitholes. People will be begging us to get rid of these people, and then we'll get Trump to come in and get rid of them all. He'll be the hero. Right? He'll get rid of all the illegals, and then they'll have some false flag event that'll happen that'll make it so that they have to put the troops into the cities, right? He'll say, it's too bad, I can't do anything about it. I got to put New York troops into New York for a year. And then they just never leave, right? Mexico agrees to fulfill U.S. water treaty commitments. A study estimated that only 40% of the water directly consumed in the area as a result of human activities is replenished by renewable sources. So Mexico is doing something by withholding water from certain ranchers in Texas, and it's hurting them. Trump had threatened some kind of tariff for that if they didn't stop. But what about, I think if you're going to go into some country, I'd go into Mexico. Why? Because that's where all the drugs are coming in. That's who's not securing their southern border. That's where a lot of cartels are, some of them, the powerful ones. South Korea's defense giant plans $1 billion U.S. plan for 155 millimeter howitzer modular charges. Hanwha aims to introduce its fully automated, vertically integrated production capabilities in the U.S. So why do we need South Korea to create howitzer charges to shoot artillery shells? We can't do that ourselves. We don't know how to make shaped charges in this country. Sure we do. It just doesn't make any sense. It's like this guy, all he does is sell us out to other countries and says, oh, look, all these countries are investing in America. But you're not making American companies invest. American companies should be the first order of business. All contracts for the Army should first go through American companies before it's given to foreign, is my take on it. U.S. scientists use quantum chemistry to enable chlorine-free water disinfection. The study reveals why tin oxide ozone catalysts fail under high voltage operation. Yeah, you don't want to put chlorine in your water, right? That's not actually good for you, chlorine. Right? It's not good to swim in a chlorine pool every day. That's actually really bad for your skin. I don't go in chlorine pools anymore for that reason. I just don't like the way it makes me feel when I get out of the water. I'd rather go swim in the ocean, even though that has its own dangers. Coconut water emerges as a potential aid for ulcerative colitis. Well, coconut water is the most easy to hydrate yourself with. It's very good for you in terms of hydration. Research points to the power of potassium combined with coconut water's anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial properties. Yeah, it's good for your stomach too. Good for hydration. Bill and Hillary Clinton deposition and Jeffrey Epstein investigation has been pushed back to next month. So wait a minute, why do you keep protecting these guys? Everything keeps getting pushed back, you noticed, right? Bill's getting old, man. I think they keep pushing it back, and sooner or later one of these people is going to pass away, right? Or go into the off-planet world, into the vortex, into wherever, through the portal into one of those off-planet worlds that's in between worlds, and hide there. White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, AG Pam Bondi completely whiffed on the Epstein files. J.D. Vance has been a conspiracy theorist for decades. Well, why is it that Bondi's involved with the Epstein case down in Florida, and then she's actually in this position now is very highly dubious to me. HHS probes whether billions in taxpayer money sent to Minnesota was fueled illegal and mass migration. Well, it's definitely mass migration. I mean, Biden was just letting everybody in here. Zoran Mamdani is eyeing a lawyer who defended al-Qaeda terrorists for top City Hall job. Why would you do that? There's nobody better than this guy? There's probably 100 people that are better qualified than that guy. Excuse me. Trump administration says White House ballroom project must continue for national security reasons. I don't understand. Some people are saying that there was something really bad under there, that they have to get rid of it. I don't know what it was. There's stuff under the White House. Tunnels and such. Does it have to cost that much money? U.S. Secret Service Deputy Director Matthew Quinn said that more work on the site is still needed to meet the agency's safety and security requirements. Hillary Clinton's own Russia scandal. FBI memos detail how Uranium One probe thwarted. Running out the clock, the FBI and DOJ slow-walked their investigation into the Clinton Foundation and the sale of Uranium One to Russia-backed interests. As a result of roadblocks, the statute of limitation was allowed to lapse on any prosecution. Yep. They got away with it. All of it. It looks like. I don't even think there's going to be any Gitmo executions like they've been saying. It's obvious that no one is in Gitmo right now. You would have heard about such on the news, right? So you can all the people that said, oh, they're all in Gitmo, all the people that go back and look at all the videos that said they were all tried in Gitmo, you can tell all those people are liars, which is the majority of them. There's nobody in Gitmo. Not these big wigs you think are. No, none of them are. Mamdani's about to prove that his administration will be worse than you thought. Well, it's looking pretty bad. That's all I can tell you. Ford killing F-150 EV pickup warns of whopping $19.5 billion write-down in dramatic electric shift. So Ford's just like, we're not making this anymore. This thing is a piece of shit. We can't make a profit on it. It costs too much to make. It makes the car much heavier and more dangerous. It's a bad technology. It's dirty. It's not clean energy. Right? You'd be better off producing the water engine or something else right now. Hydrogen. We know Ilhan Omar lied about becoming citizen as a minor. The 110-foot Statue of Liberty replica comes crashing down in Brazilian city. Excuse me, we had talked about this before. It's really about Saturn worship, Colombia, Liberty Falls. Here's Liberty going down. It's tilting in the wind already. Oh, there it goes. Liberty is down, dude. Liberty is down. Strong winds. Pete Hegseth to slash 4-star generals in Pentagon shakeup that pulls the plug on Europe and Middle East. So he's still getting rid of those generals. Governor Hochul leaves New York City polls fuming after her veto keeps Mamdani's mayoral powers intact. So she gave Mamdani some more powers. So we've had 2 attacks on Jews in the city. One was on the subway where the black male grabbing a Jewish guy around his throat claimed that the guy touched him or something. I don't know. Was saying fuck the Jews. And then another guy said he was going to kill a Jew today and pulled out a knife and almost stabbed this Jewish guy to death. Stabbed him in the chest, and luckily he was able to deflect the blow enough that it wasn't into his heart and it was next to his heart, and he had a sweater on and another shirt, so it deflected it enough where he had a cut in his chest, but it wasn't nearly as bad as it could have been. So I'm assuming they're activating all these different players right now because they want to make the vibration as low as possible. They want to keep all our collective vibration low, which is why I'm thinking about stopping the show, because that's what they're doing. And so I don't want to be part of that. I don't want to lower vibration. I'm following the news so that I can understand what's happening in the world that I live in and use my intellectual mind and my logical mind to try to figure out what I think is going on. I don't want to lower the collective vibration, but that's what this kind of information is doing in a sense, right? Trump is in the Epstein files, says White House chief of staff in staggering admission. They were young single playboys. She's saying he's in there. He's already been in the pictures. I mean, if you remember, there's lawsuits that are out there against Trump for rape. Allegedly, right? We showed them. The Jordan, what was that kid's name? That nobody wants him on the shows anymore. I gotta look his name up. I can't remember it now. He's got all the information. That's why nobody wants him on. U.S. Marine with nickname Dark Witch is 5th person arrested for New Year's Eve terror cell. So wait a minute. There was, before this was pro-Palestinians. Now you're saying there's a United States Marine? This thing is bigger than we thought. DHS says there's no evidence Ilhan Omar's son was pulled over and asked to provide proof of citizenship. With no evidence, it's shameful that Congresswoman Omar would level accusations to demonize ICE as part of a PR stunt. You won't believe who Australian police actually shot during the Bondi massacre. They shot the wrong person. They shot one of the guys that disarmed one of them. And other people were beating that poor man who has actually helped people. Shooters were not engaged for up to 20 minutes. Where's the cops? Where's SWAT? Nobody. That's what I wrote. Burn cage incinerator reportedly found at David's rented Hollywood home after teen's body discovered in the trunk of a Tesla. This guy's got a burn cage incinerator in his house. What do you use that for? Well, to incinerate stuff. Well, you can incinerate like a body, right? And then what's left? Well, it's like all that's left is like the bones, right? Like as if you were cremating somebody. Pope Leo to accept Cardinal Dolan's resignation. So the Cardinal Dolan in New York has stepped down of the New York Archdiocese head. That's a big deal. He's been in that position for decades. $2 billion budget shortfall leaves Mamdani's freebie-filled agenda with uphill battle. There's no good news. He's actually in a $6 billion shortfall. And that's with a city that has a $240+ billion budget. Duke of Marlborough charged with 3 counts of intentional strangulation. Some more royals in trouble. The Duke of Marlborough has been charged with intentionally strangulating 3 women. Trump orders a total and complete naval blockade of Venezuela now. I wrote, why didn't Trump take more of an interest in Venezuela in his first term as they starved their population literally to death? Remember when we were watching that? Literally the people were starving to death and you just didn't do shit. You sat back and did nothing, right? You didn't even threaten Maduro with anything. So yesterday, silver was up $3.08 at one point to a new all-time high of $67.08 an ounce. Gold was at $43.63. Let's see what silver's doing real quick before we... Almost done. Sorry, that's not silver. I keep wishing my YouTube page will come back. It looks like YouTube is gone forever, guys. I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry to say. It looks like YouTube is gone forever. Silver's down 40 cents at $66.08. I never thought I'd see silver at $66 an ounce. That's insane. I was calling it $100 silver by February, maybe soon. I'm still calling it. Bolivia moves to amend legal coca cultivation law. A lot of cocaine comes out of this country too. I didn't realize that. Bolivia. They produce a lot of coca leaf. Are they going to change the way coca... Are they going to make coca illegal? Or because they do sell coca leaf in La Paz, right? People chew it and eat it. You can buy it there. I don't know if it's legal, though. South Africa arrests 7 undocumented Kenyans processing U.S. visas. So that's odd. What are Kenyans doing in South Africa processing U.S. visas? That's a mouthful to figure out. Here's an article called The Muslim Invasion by PJ Media. Yeah, you're being invaded. Some of these countries. I was saying that 5 years ago. I haven't changed in my thoughts on that. Some of these countries, including my own, are being invaded. The Trump administration has banned Palestinian Authority passport holders from entering the United States. Several U.S. designated terrorist groups operate actively in the West Bank or Gaza Strip and have murdered American citizens, quote unquote. I posted Jordan Maxwell's Keys to Understanding Hidden Symbols in the Bible. This is a must if you want to really kind of get into how all the major religions sort of have deceived us in a sense. With the stories not being completely true. You have the Bible, then you have the New Testament. There's just, most of the New Testament's written by one man who was apparently a Greek Gnostic. So How much of the New Testament are you going to, quote as real? Well, if it's only written by one guy, I don't know. Most of it. Right? There's some flaws in this all three religious groups. Jewish New Yorker recounts stabbing just centimeters from his heart by anti-Semitic sicko going to kill a Jew today, the guy was yelling. So they're turning on all these guys, are they demon possessed, one or the other, right? Because there's people in New York walking around who are demon possessed, there's no question. I told you that years ago, and it's true. You could see it from when the pastor confronted that one guy who was demon possessed, and he said, "In Jesus' name, I repudiate you," and that's when he was struck, right? Because demons don't like to hear the word Jesus' name, that's for sure. Dan Bongino is preparing to leave the FBI with rumored replacement waiting in the wings. Does Bongino know the original Trump is no longer there? That's just my opinion. Does he also maybe know something? Like he's realizing that they got taken over? Tucker Carlson claims Trump will declare war on Venezuela tonight in address to the nation. Well, he was wrong. He didn't declare war on Venezuela. Why is Carlson doing that? Why does he think he knows something that nobody else knows? Why is he trying to come out and pretend that he has knowledge that nobody else seems to have? Seems like he's doing a lot of fear porn lately, right? Remember when Tucker Carlson goes to visit Julian Assange but never comes out with what he talked about with Julian? Why did Tucker Carlson go visit Julian Assange? And if he did interview Julian Assange, why did he never release the interview? Ghislaine Maxwell asked court to throw out her sex trafficking conviction just days before the new Epstein job. So she's asking for the whole thing to get thrown out. Is Trump going to pardon her? Is more stuff about to come out that's going to implicate her even more? So she wants to try to do this now? I don't know. Is she playing her Trump card now? We'll see. We'll see if he pardons her or not. If he pardons her, she played that card. And how come nobody's talking about Christine Maxwell and Chiliad still? U.S. charges California firm Florida clinic in alleged $100 million Adderall scam. So Adderall's a big problem. It's basically like speed. Make sure your kid's not on Adderall. And if they are, get them off it right away. That's my opinion. Why? Because it's just like taking speed. You might as well have your kid sniffing speed, which is not a good thing to have a kid on who's like hyped up already, probably, right? Or if your kid's depressed, you don't want them up on speed. They're going to be acting strange, not normal. And then if they start smoking weed on top of that, it could really fuck our head up real bad. Or mixing it with other drugs. New FBI releases show radically different treatment of Trump and Hillary Clinton. New FBI releases show different treatment. So we're going after Trump wholesale, and they're not looking into Clinton hardly at all, right? Because you left James Comey in place, which was the stupidest thing you could have done. You knew Comey was a fixer for the Clintons. You knew he was a fixer for the left. Why would you leave Comey in place all that time while you're in your first term? He should have been fired right away, along with all the other people, the 5 people underneath him. That way you would have got rid of a lot of the rot at the top. FBI didn't believe there were grounds for a search warrant, and they still went into Mar-a-Lago. What if Somalis built in America? Rep. Jay Appel's claims get destroyed. Yeah, what if the Somalis built who have come here? Not much. I don't see much they're doing. Australia doesn't have a gun problem. It has an Islamist problem. Yeah. It wasn't like some native Australians who shot at this. It was Muslims in Australia who were allowed into Australia recently, in the last years, who did this. Fulton County. We don't dispute that 315,000 votes lacking poll workers' signatures were counted in 2020. Well, if you counted 300,000 votes in Fulton County, that changed the result of the election. That should have made your whole election in that county invalidated it, right? It should have invalidated it. Dan Bongino's leaving the FBI. We don't know why. He hasn't said. He said it's because he wants to return to his talk show as the Epstein files are being released. Why? Do you know that something big is coming out in the Epstein files? It sounds like it. If you want to go back and do your talk show instead of being the FBI anymore. Mamdani will have to fill a $6.5 billion budget cap by the summer, on top of the freebie-filled agenda he vows. So he's going to have to give people less rents, right? He's going to have to offer housing that he can't afford to build and that nobody wants to build for cheap. He's got to find somebody to build that. He's going to have to spend the city's money to do that. And then he's going to have to run those buildings because no one's going to want to run them because you're not going to be able to make any money if it's rent controlled. It's very hard to make a profit. Bill Clinton brought Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell to the Moroccan king's wedding after the ex-pres asked to add pervy pals. I wonder why he brought him over there. Was he trying to get him compromised as well? Probably. Maybe he brought some kids with him, some young women. Maybe in the sub. Maybe he has a submarine. Trump administration probes Colorado after 221 dead people received federal housing assistance. So there's people who are dead getting Social Security still, as well as voting, right? We know that. And they're getting benefits. So it's like a triple scam. Not only am I using the dead person to vote, they're getting Social Security and or food stamps or both. Can you get food stamps on Social Security? Yeah, you could. Sure. If you're poor enough. Trump Media and Fusion Power Company tie technologies to merge in a $6 billion deal. So this isn't this isn't a problem. The all-stock deal is expected to close in mid-2026. Trump is massively enriching himself, not just through True Social, but other deals he's doing. His sons are doing. Jared Kushner's putting $200 million in and trying to get into part of the Netflix deal and being on that. Fiery Trump vows shock and all push for affordability, says Americans' finances will soar in 2026. Okay. We haven't seen the United States government implode still. We haven't seen any talk about any medical beds, free technology, anything like that. I wrote down a whole bunch of things that are going on all at the same time or have been going on for December. I have 9/11, COVID, the Gulf War, the Afghanistan War, protect the poppy, silver and gold. These are just all things I have written down. They may or may not be intertwined with each other. Corrupt judges. Afghanistan, poppy, the heroin, global heroin trade, human stock exchange, election fraud, shootings, school shootings, fentanyl, cocaine, Venezuela, NATO, Ukraine, assassination, fake elections, drug sales, Trump casinos, money laundering, Epstein, human trafficking, Compromat, AI, CIA, FBI, corrupt, drug sales, illegal alien flood, Muslim flood, excuse me, gang infiltration in the United States, etc. So that's just some of the stuff I have written down that has been allowed to go on and happen. And if you allow those things to happen, like we have had, then you're going to have a world that's filled with problems, right? That's filled with a group of people that are constantly trying to enrich themselves through drug sales, through world domination. And the fake world that these people created is dying out. It's about to die out permanently and go away forever. And so there's a group of people that don't want that to happen. There's groups of people that have been involved with each other for a very long period of time, who have covered each other, who have lied for each other, who have made sure that they weren't touched because they have political power and or know people that do or have a lot of money. So what you're seeing is the end of the third dimension, the end of 3D, the end of the control structure and the control grid that's been over humanity for thousands upon thousands of years, that has been put there by groups who are off-world to control us and set up a loosh farm where humanity can be farmed for different things like their energy, their loosh, they're used as a food source, and as well as used to reverse engineer certain technologies and to use Earth as as a source for whatever they needed, right? Whether it's human beings, loosh farming to extend their lives, etc. There's groups who are more advanced, who are taking advantage of less advanced worlds and groups of people, and then they need to be stopped. And that's part of what this war is about, I believe, as well as allowing humanity to ascend freely into the fourth and then the fifth dimension, which is key to not only Earth's future, but probably the whole galaxy's future and other galaxies and worlds' future as well that are energetically connected to us, right? So, friends, I hope you're well. It's been a long, hard war and a long, hard journey, but I think we're on the closer to the end side than we are than the closer to the beginning side. So I feel like we've turned some kind of an energetic corner, but still have a lot of work left to do. As long as I'm seeing this fake Trump there, I have a lot of problems with what we're doing. It doesn't seem like we're doing the right thing. And until that fake Trump is either removed or it's acknowledged that there is a fake Trump there, I don't see us moving forward in a positive way. Unless there's some kind of event like AI Atlas shows up and there's some kind of fake, who knows, right? We'll have to just stay frosty, keep an eye on things that are going on, and most of all try to love each other and try to keep our energies high, because these people are going to do anything in their power to lower the collective group dynamics energy so that we can't ascend, but they won't be able to. No matter how many school shooters they do, we're still going to ascend to the next density. And there's nothing they could do about it. And so I hope you're well, friends, working out, stretching, staying in your center space. That's all I got for you right now. It's another 3 hours. I apologize. We tried our best, but there's too much information coming out. I'm going to probably now step back just a bit, and we'll see where we go from here. But until I see some kind of huge piece of information that shows me we're on the right direction, I'm going to probably scale down the shows from here on out, because I don't think a lot of people are watching, one. And two, I have other things to do with my life now that I want to try to get done. If I was getting thousands of hits on these shows and I was really and it was growing towards a way where more and more people were watching, I'd maybe feel more inclined to keep doing the shows. But the amount of time it takes to do the show, as well as the research and watching the news feeds for days and days on end to accumulate all these links is just taking its toll on me also. So, and there's not much, that I get out of it, right? I'm not making a living doing this, so I'm just using my time, and time is a resource I don't have an infinite amount of anymore, right? So I feel like I've done what I can do in this genre. Maybe my next incantation is just talking more about stuff instead of showing articles and just talking about things in maybe a half hour to hour dynamic show like that. So we'll see where we go from here on in. The show's not over yet, but I'm feeling the strain of it more and more, and I'm feeling like I need to go in a different direction more and more in my ascension process. So I always said that if this show was getting in the way of my ascension process, or if it was affecting my health in a negative way, that I'd stop. So it's not affecting my health so much in a negative way, but I feel like at this point it is affecting my ascension process somewhat, where I'm constantly watching negative articles and it's starting to wear me down, because I just feel like we're not going in the right direction, and it's kind of hard to watch this happen and not see some big event happen that would say, okay, now I know we're headed in the right direction at least, right? We're not seeing that. And so as the longer that this goes on, where you see Trump coming on trying to show you, to convince the American people that he's doing the right thing, while not coming up with the big tech items that we were thinking would be here by now, right? How many more people in your family are going to die before you realize that this guy's not going to give you medical beds, right? I don't think. Because if he was, he would have done it already. Why wouldn't you come out with that right away? It's only can bring positivity towards you and your party, right? Why wouldn't you want to help people get better? I don't have the answer for that. Friends, you're going to have to wait and see. So I hope you're doing well. I hope you're working out, stretching, staying in your center space. We'll continue to try to do our best to do these shows as much as I can going forward, but like I said, it's getting harder and harder, and I don't see a point in it unless I see some positive change in a way that is leading us in the right direction with either getting rid of this fake Trump avatar or at least coming out with the fact that that's been going on, right? They haven't even said anything like that to you, which has me even more worried. So friends, I hope you're well, working out, stretching, staying in your center space. Probably next time I'll see you, or maybe sometime around Christmas or after, I don't know. If I don't have a Christmas show before Christmas, then I want to wish you and your family a Merry Christmas if you celebrate. If you celebrate Kwanzaa, I hope you have a beautiful Kwanzaa. If you celebrate Festivus, I hope you have a beautiful Festivus pole and you have your Festivus pole up. Whatever thing you happen to be celebrating, I hope you have a great celebration. That's all I'm saying. And I hope you're well. This is your friend in New York, Ash, NPNP News, signing off for now.